In the new world, somewhere in the sea covered by gloomy dark clouds, the slender candle path floats on the vast sea, extending all the way forward, forming a slightly strange scene. Mr. 3 rode the sea bike leisurely, looked up at the dark sky, and didn't show any extra worry. In a new world where extreme weather conditions can occur at any time, this situation is hardly normal. It is absolutely impossible to travel by looking at the sky in this sea area. Beside Mr. 3, Reiju was wearing a pink battlesuit, and her combat boots gave birth to 2 rows of steel wheels to skate on the candle passage. The sea breeze was bitter, and the deep purple butterfly-shaped cloak on his back fluttered wantonly. Myoman's unrivaled figure is set off to the extreme, showing the heroic atmosphere of Yuji. If you're tired, it doesn't matter if you sit up. Mr. 3 raised his hand and patted the back seat of the bicycle, taking the lead in breaking the silence between the two. Reiju kept her forward speed at the same speed as Mr. 3, and was always alert. Thank you, but I don't need it yet. In front of vicious pirates, especially big pirates like Mr. 3, she dared not relax in the slightest. Mr. 3 turned his eyes, glanced at Reiju whose muscles were slightly tense, and said slowly, I'm not talking about physical strength, but spiritual level. After all, you have never been on guard against me since you set off from Germa Kingdom. Let it go. Seeing Reiju looking at him with shock, Mr. 3 smiled softly, don't worry, although I am a veritable womanizer, this is what I used to think about. He pointed to his head with a finger. After a few seconds of silence, Reiju asked, if that's the case, why do you insist on taking me away? She was far inferior to her father, Gaji, in terms of threat level and scientific research level, and joining the Cross Union would not play a key role at all. It's even more impossible to put her under house arrest and threaten Gaji. That cold-blooded man doesn't care about such small things. The reason is very simple. If you don't do this, your father won't be able to study superweapons at ease. Mr. 3 explained it as a matter of course. There are completely different things between people who have Germa in the Cross Union and those who don't. Gage needs you to better understand the Cross Guild, and we, too, have the same idea. The existence of Reiju is like a bridge, connecting Germa and the Cross Union, making the cooperation between the two parties more transparent. This is not only what Gaji hoped, but also Mr. 3's real purpose to make Reiju his little brother. Only when Germa deeply realizes the power of the Cross Union will the follow-up recruitment be smoother. I see. Reiju is not stupid. After being reminded by Mr. 3, Dang even figured out the reason, and sighed softly, it's really just like the rumors, he is a thoughtful and scheming man. To me, that's really a nice compliment. After bowing his head and thinking for a while, Mr. 3 continued, however, even putting aside these factors, I still have reasons for wanting you to join the Cross Union. Why? Lei Jiuliu frowned slightly, showing a puzzled expression. Gollum. At this moment, a few jet-black heads popped out of the sea in front of the candle passage, a few emperor penguins with strange shapes. Mr. 3 lightly gripped the brake and rang the bicycle bell. After chasing away the cute emperor penguins, he answered Reiju's question. Are you different from the rest of the Vinsmoke family? Just like your younger brother Sanji, perhaps only a reformer who retains his emotions can have the most perfect power. From Sanji's battle with Sanji Quinn in Ghost Island, he awakened the exoskeleton with super resilience and toughness. So, is it possible for Reiju, whose feelings have not been completely wiped out, to awaken this power? As one of the important research fields of blood factors, if you can use Reiju and Vegapunk technology boxes to thoroughly understand and master this technology, it will definitely strengthen the mid-level and high-level combat power of the Cross Guild at an epic level. Hearing Mr. 3's precise judgment, Reiju's movements obviously paused, and she almost rolled over and rushed out of the candle channel and fell into the sea. Can such accurate information be captured just by meeting for the first time? After taking a few deep breaths to calm herself down again, she did not refute, but sighed in a low voice. It's really a keen perception. Ha ha ha, thanks for the compliment, Mr. 3 said cheekily. In fact, there is a second reason for taking Reiju away. Reiju has a very close relationship with the Straw Hats. In this era of chaos and undercurrents, unless you have the invincible power to crush all powerful enemies, you need to take care of all aspects. Regardless of hard power, I want to completely overthrow the rule of the Tianlong people and ascend to the top of the world. Whether it is the intelligence ability to grasp the various forces, or the public opinion that can influence the world, or the personal connections of the same status, all three are indispensable. The first two Mr. 3s have already laid the foundation in advance, and as for the third network, naturally the more the better. Speaking of which, you mentioned the Straw Hat Pirates when you were in Germa. That boy Sanji, after leaving Wano country, he should have become more masculine, right? Mentioning Sanji, Reiju couldn't help showing a touch of concern in his eyes. This is the younger brother she wants to protect at the risk of risking her life. Some time ago, the news that the Crusaders met with the Straw Hat Pirates was still fresh in her memory, when the city was advancing to Jinbei, so she did not doubt the relationship between Mr. 3 and the Straw Hat Pirates. I don't know about masculinity, but there is no change in the aspect of lust, and there is even a further trend, Mr. 3 replied solemnly. His gaze didn't fall on Reiju, but he allocated part of his energy to control the laying angle of the candle passage, trying to avoid more and more emperor penguins in front of him as much as possible. At the same time, he frowned slightly, showing doubts. There are no islands with extremely cold climates around this sea area. Why are there a large number of penguins gathered here? Is it because of the continuous accumulation of dark clouds in the sky, changing the temperature? The new world is full of unpredictable novelties. Mr. 3 didn't think too much, and headed towards Kale Bali according to the permanent pointer on the front of the sea bike. Is it already so obvious? It seems that Sanji has really brought out the advantage of lust to the extreme. Thinking of Sanji's cute look with love in his eyes, Reiju couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth, revealing a touching smile. In her opinion as an older sister, Sanji's lust is almost equivalent to his gentlemanly way of never shooting at women, which is an advantage that she can be proud of. Although Mr. 3, who has always been brazen, wanted to speak out, he also has this rare advantage in himself, but his eyes flashed red with advanced knowledge and domineering, and at this moment he caught the dangerous aura from the sea ahead. That pirate flag is. Mr. 3's pupils shrank, revealing an expression of disbelief. Looking in the direction of his field of vision, he saw a single-masted bamboo raft swaying and sinking in the waves. A skull icon with 3 heads is printed on the black sail, and the English word, Black Barrow, on the icon is extremely conspicuous. It is the pirate ship under the banner of the 4 Emperors Blackbeard. What made Mr. 3 suddenly put away the casual look on his face, and the muscles all over his body were tense, were the 2 figures standing upright on the small pirate ship, wearing black cloaks. They are the teleportation fruit ability user who had a short fight on Juguo Island, the Blackbeard pirates Sniper Van Oka, and former admiral of the Navy headquarters, Kuzan, who is suspected to be the captain of the 10th ship of the Black Group, and a person with the ability to freeze fruits. Fan Oka of the Blackbeard pirates, and Kuzan. Sensing the strangeness of Mr. 3, Reiju raised her head and looked into the distance, and the moment she recognized the identities of the 2 people on the small pirate ship, she couldn't help but tremble and her face turned pale. Although there was still a piece of sea between the other party and them, the chilling aura quickly enveloped them like the black sky above their heads, bringing an extreme sense of oppression. That is the highest combat power of the former Navy headquarters, Kuzan, who can fight fiercely with the current Admiral Akainu for 10 days and 10 nights. It's just the 2 captains of the Blackbeard pirates, don't panic. Sensing Reiju's rapid and disordered breathing, Mr. 3 squeezed the handlebars, turned over and got off the bike, and parked the sea bike. After all, he is a reformed person with a strong physique who has fought against the 4 emperors. After being shocked, Reiju nodded slightly, and suppressed the panic in her heart. Under the vigilant eyes of the 2, the small raft pirate ship slowly approached and stopped at a distance of more than 10 meters. Before the people on board opened their mouths, a bone-piercing cold air hit their faces, causing the surrounding temperature to drop several degrees. Perhaps, this is the fundamental reason why there are so many emperor penguins along the way. Mr. 3 looked at Kuzan and Fan Oka on the boat with solemn expressions. Judging the route based on the trajectory of the Candle Road, and squatting here in advance, it is indeed a quite correct decision. In the end, Kuzan, who was still wearing black sunglasses, spoke out first, breaking the silence of both parties. Unlike the last encounter at sea when he went to Sanju roundabout to recruit, Kuzan looked indifferent at this time and was not riding his bicycle. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but the icy cold air constantly emanating from his body means that his appearance this time is not friendly. The Blackbeard pirates want to find me, so go directly to Kale Bali. It's really hard for you to spend so much time. At some point, the unique 3-letter hairstyle on Mr. 3's head has ignited a bright flame. He stepped forward, and when the soles of his feet hit the ground, the wax gushed out, forming a firm foothold in avoiding direct contact with the seawater. The warm and hot flame dispelled the cold. Reiju looked at the thin figure standing in front of her, and felt an inexplicable touch in her heart. Growing up in the unemotional Vinsmoke family, she spent most of her time fighting and plundering with her father, Gage, and had seen too many betrayals and deceptions. And Mr. 3, who is also a pirate and has only just met, will not hesitate to expose his back full of flaws to himself, blocking the Blackbeard pirates in front of him. Compared with the tall figure of Pirate World, which is several meters or tens of meters, Mr. 3's back is definitely not tall, but in the eyes of Reiju at this moment, it seems extremely reliable. That's the stronghold of your cross-trade union. Even we don't have the guts to break into it for the time being. Kuzan stared at Mr. 3 intently, opened his mouth slightly, and spit out a stream of snow-white icy air. When I heard that you were able to compete with Admiral Green Bull, I still didn't believe it. Now it seems that I was wrong before. Mr. 3, is this terrifying domineering aura that makes people retreat just by staring at it is your real strength? There was undisguised emotion in the indifferent voice, and a hint of shock. Perhaps what you perceive is not my limit, Mr. 3 asked with high concentration. Although I know that Aokiji must have his own plans to join the Blackbeard pirates, and it is unlikely that the human design will collapse and be completely blackened, but the hostility emanating from him at this moment is extremely strong and pure. Boom. Before Kuzan could make a move, crisp and piercing gunshots rang out without warning, bringing out a puff of gunpowder smoke. Fanioka was holding a sniper rifle, and his pupils covered by the monolithic sniper mirror revealed fierce determination. This man's knowledgeable and domineering aura is a bit stronger than when he was on Juguo Island. Seeing the sniper bullets fired at high speed being blocked by Mr. 3's armed palm, Fanioka was secretly startled, and glanced at Kuzan beside him from the corner of his eye. Hurry up and do it, things will become troublesome when the cross-union finds out. This ambush of Mr. 3 is very important. If it fails, the success rate of subsequent sneak attacks will be greatly reduced. And because the four Emperor's goals are too big and easy to be exposed, Blackbeard will send Kuzan and Fanioka to ensure that the operation is foolproof. Of course, Kuzan, needless to say, the proper admiral of the Navy headquarters, has super high combat power. As for Fanioka, who has the ability to teleport, in addition to covering and chasing, there must be a deep meaning of supervising Kuzan's actions. Obviously, Blackbeard, who is suspicious by nature, will not believe Kuzan surrenders so easily. In other words, Kuzan will definitely not hold back easily in this sudden surprise attack. Thinking of this, instead of feeling afraid, Mr. 3 was surrounded by dark red lightning, bursting out with incomparably powerful arrogance. Ever since he mastered Ba Tang and Ba Ran, he hasn't experienced a hearty battle of the same level in the true sense. The battle with the Vinsmoke family just now was completely crushed, and it was impossible to judge the limit of his current strength. He pretended to be strong enough, but he didn't enjoy playing at all. And Aokiji, who is in front of him with a turbulent cold air and a full sense of oppression, will undoubtedly be a very suitable and powerful opponent. Feeling Mr. 3's domineering and fierce dominance, Kuzan, who has always been casual and gentle, flashed his eyes, and slowly pulled his hands out of his pockets. The cold air that seemed to freeze everything in the world was released mercilessly with his gradually rising aura. Sizzle. With the pirate ship as the center, the freezing seawater spreads in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. The endless cold air was overwhelming, and in an instant, except for the candle passage, the sea area around Mr. 3 and Reiju was completely frozen. Reiju, you retreat back, leave this to me. Mr. 3 raised his feet and stepped lightly on the candle channel, and the white wax liquid gushed out like a tide, resisting the invasion of the cold ice. Understood. Knowing that staying here would only hinder Mr. 3, Reiju nodded solemnly, coordinatingly mobilized the energy of the battlesuit, and flew into the air. Just when she was about to evacuate, Mr. 3 shouted, "Car, get on my car too." This sea bike is a system reward and has the potential to become a black car. If it is unfortunately destroyed or sinks into the sea in the next battle, it will be a great loss. Hearing this, Reiju, who was suspended in the air, was taken aback for a moment, then landed again, picked up the bicycle and left quickly. During the period, Kuzan also stood still and did not make a shot quite cooperatively. Fanioka wanted to raise his gun to shoot, but was overwhelmed by Mr. 3's sudden burst of arrogance, and had no choice but to focus all his attention on Mr. 3. Having participated in the Battle of Juguo Island and having seen the strength of Mr. 3, he was worried that the moment he made a move against Reiju, he would be swallowed by a terrifying candle attack. Seeing that Reiju retreated to a safe distance and stopped, and did not leave the bicycle to escape alone, a satisfied smile appeared on the corner of Mr. 3's mouth. I've been waiting for a long time, so next, Let me feel how powerful the former admiral of the Navy headquarters is. Boom. The dark red lightning lingered rapidly and lasted for a long time. Mr. 3, who started the initial stage of Overlord color burning, stood in the center of the ever-spreading candle field. Its momentum exploded, like a god and demon. In response, Kuzan jumped into the air, raised his arms that had turned into ice cubes, and swung them down to the left and right. The absolute cold air that can freeze even the moisture in the air erupted in an instant, spreading rapidly along the icy continent, freezing all the candle fields under Mr. 3's feet. This is his signature skill, Ice Age. The endless cold air covered the sky. At the moment of contact, Mr. 3, together with the candle floating on the sea under his feet, turned into a still light blue ice sculpture. The cold wind was blowing, bringing an eerie silence. Did you get it? Fan Oka asked Kuzan, shaking his sniper rifle tightly. If it can be solved so easily, how can it be possible to compete with the green cow and wild animal husbandry? Aokiji returned to the pirate ship, turned his eyes wearing black sunglasses, and looked at the human-shaped ice sculpture standing in the ice and snow ahead. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a click, and a slender crack appeared on the smooth and flat ice sculpture. The bright flame was the first to break through the blockade of ice, swaying in the cold wind. Click click. The clear and loud sound continued to be heard, and the white wax liquid continuously spewed out from the cracks on the ice surface, propping up the entire ice sculpture to pieces. Candle Dragon. Among the ice shards flying all over the sky, Mr. 3, who blocked the ice with the help of a candle coat, took a step forward and attacked decisively. I saw that the wax that had overflowed before quickly gathered behind him, forming 3 frightening white candle dragons. The giant candle dragon with empty eyes but extremely sharp roared, rushing towards Kuzan and Fan Oka, who were opposite with a domineering posture. Fan Oka decisively activated the teleportation fruit ability and disappeared in place, while Kuzan bent down and jumped into the air. Boom. The 3 candle dragons charged forward, although they missed nothing, but the strong impact smashed the raft-shaped pirate ship to pieces, and the black mast broke and collapsed. 2 thorn spears. Kuzan, who was in the air, raised his hands, created 2 ice spears on the left and right sides of his body, and attacked Mr. 3 with the momentum of piercing the air. Candle Wall. Mr. 3's pupils shrunk slightly, and the candles under his feet swelled up high, forming an indestructible wall in front of him. Boom. The penetrating ability of the ice spear is extremely strong. While piercing into the wall of the candle, it also bursts out a bitter cold air, which directly freezes the candle, which is far harder than steel, into ice cubes, and shatters the ground into shards of ice. A veteran general of the level like Aokiji is indeed much more difficult to deal with than the Green Bull. It's really a clear decision to start the Overlord color burning before the battle broke out. Sensing the remaining coldness in his body, Mr. 3's eyes gradually became serious. Kuzan's initial Ice Age was indeed resolved by him, but it was limited to the surface ice attack, and the cold attack contained in it was difficult to completely resist. The result of this is that his fighting nerves and physical reactions will become sluggish unconsciously, and if he is a little careless, he will fall into the disadvantage and be crushed miserably. This is the most terrifying place of freezing ability. Just as he was thinking, a red light suddenly flashed across Mr. 3's pupils, and the domineering color of knowing the future bloomed, and he captured the future 2 seconds later. A sniper bullet passed through his head. Whoosh. Mr. 3's face was calm, his head was handsomely tilted to the side, and he didn't make any unnecessary movements. The next second the gunshot rang out, and Fan Oka, who had withdrawn to a safe distance, stood on the ice and pulled the trigger of the sniper rifle. The domineering bullet with the armed color skimmed Mr. 3's cheek, and the resulting aftermath was perfectly defended by Mr. 3 with a more powerful armed color. Obviously the speed of appearance has been increased to the extreme, but was this guy dodged again? Mr. 3, has he already mastered the knowledge of predicting the future so well? Fan Oka was secretly shocked. During the last battle on Juguo Island, he didn't feel such a tricky arrogance from Mr. 3. However, before he readjusted his position and continued his sneak attack, a swirl of wax that was moving forward like a white python broke into his field of vision in the blink of an eye. The wax squirmed in midair, transforming into ghostly hands of overwhelming candles, grabbing Fan Oka's limbs and head. After all, he is the core cadre of the Blackbeard pirate ship. Although Fan Oka's sense of knowledge has not reached the level of predicting the future, it is not too weak. At the moment when he was about to be grabbed by the ghost's hand, his face flustered, he quickly activated the fruit ability and teleported to an area hundreds of meters away. It's really dangerous, I almost got caught. Fan Oka, who managed to escape with great difficulty, just breathed a sigh of relief, when the scorching breath rushed towards his face made his heart skip a beat. Looking up, he saw the flaming candle shells appearing in advance of his teleportation position, shining brightly, and exploding billowing black smoke with a boom. This is the frightening thing about predicting the future. Under the blessing of this kind of domineering, most of the surprise attacks and dodges will be invalid. Multiple icicles. While Mr. 3 launched an attack on Fan Oka, endless cold air hit, and the ice continent as the foothold trembled violently. Whoosh whoosh. Countless light blue icicles erupted from the ice surface, juxtaposed one after the other, precisely surrounding Mr. 3. Sensing the danger in advance, Mr. 3 raised his fist wrapped in wax and domineering, and slammed it down towards his body. Boom. The erupting icicles collided head-on with the wax liquid, and the ice chips and wax liquid raged and wiped each other away. Fighting with me actually puts extra energy on other people, Mr. 3. Should I say that you are full of confidence, or are you arrogant? The dark shadow covered it with a strong sense of oppression. With the help of the cover of the icicle, at some time, Kuzan had quietly come behind Mr. 3. With the same tone of indifference, Kuzan raised the ice skate in his hand blankly and stabbed heavily at Mr. 3's spine. Candle mace. At a critical juncture, an inexplicable idea appeared in the depths of Mr. 3's mind. Almost without thinking, he immediately used the awakened wax fruit ability to create a heavy spiked mace. Boom. The sharp ice blade and the candle mace collided brazenly, creating circle after circle of air ripples. The power of its shockwave is so great that it forcibly tore open cracks on the icy ground several meters thick. This is not just a competition of pure strength between Mr. 3 and Kuzan, but also a fierce confrontation of their domineering and fruitful abilities. The strength of the two sides squeezed back and forth, and it was difficult to tell the winner in a short time. Taking advantage of this gap, Mr. 3 grimaced and answered Kuzan's question just now. On the contrary, because the opponent is a powerful man like you, I need to solve all the factors that may be affected in advance. After all, if you accidentally catch the opportunity, it will become an ice sculpture in an instant. Hearing this, Kuzan, who was holding the skates tightly with both hands and continuously pumping power, frowned slightly. No matter in terms of demeanor or combat performance, the Mr. 3 in front of him far exceeded his expectations. Even in a strength confrontation with him now, it seems to be more than enough. As if to verify a certain idea in his heart, Kuzan gushed out a turbulent cold, turning his whole body into a state of pure ice. The temperature was so low that even the candle mace in Mr. 3's hand was instantly frozen. Mr. 3 didn't dare to be careless, and took the initiative to withdraw from the confrontation before Han Bing was about to touch him. Obviously, what Kuzan is waiting for is this opportunity. One after another, ice spears condensed around his body, forming the tightest attack angle, launching a fierce attack on Mr. 3 who was retreating sideways. Instead of retreating, Mr. 3 advanced. While stepping heavily on the ice with his right foot to stabilize his inertia, he created countless candle weapons suspended in midair to protect himself. As for himself, he still held the candle mace for no apparent reason, and once again confronted Kuzan. This time, the two sides are no longer in a stalemate, but split at the touch of a button. In an environment where ice spears and candle weapons are constantly piercing, a fierce battle at super high speed begins. Boom 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 boom. The sound of continuous weapon collision resounded throughout the sea area. The speed of the two is so fast that even the attack trajectory is difficult to catch with the naked eye. After all, Kuzan is a former admiral of the Navy headquarters, although most of what he has shown to the outside world is his devil fruit ability. But as a student taught by the black-armed Zephyr and who has stayed with Karp for many years, his physical skills are definitely not weak, even stronger than most lieutenant generals. In contrast, even with the blessing of the Overlord color burning, Mr. 3 is definitely inferior in terms of pure physical combat experience and skills. This is where Mr. 3, who is currently in a duel, feels very incredible. The candle mace held in his hand, whether it is sweeping sideways or backhand blocking, is quite skillful to use, and it is like a arduous special training when it is swung vigorously. Soon, the system prompt sound from the back of my mind explained this strange imagination very well. It's just that Mr. 3, who is currently in a high-level battle with Kuzan, can't spare extra attention to check the reason. Boom. As Kuzan swung the ice skate in his hand, Mr. 3, who was less skilled, was shocked back again and again after all. Compared to fruit development and three-color domineering refinement, your physical skills seem to be insufficient. Kuzan did not take advantage of the victory to pursue, but stood there confidently, resting his chin with one hand and analyzing Mr. Three's fighting style. To be honest, physical skills are really not my strong point, but I'm optimistic about Kuzan. I have the means to make up for this shortcoming. Mr. Three shook his numb arm, and tightly held the handle of the candle mace with both hands. His eyes became sharper. Sizzle sizzle. Different from the tiny electric arcs around his body, the dense and restless dark red lightning exploded, bringing a ferocious and domineering aura like a beast. Under Kuzan's wide-eyed and shocked gaze, the domineering aura gushing out of Mr. Three's body was highly compressed, and finally condensed into shining golden particles, completely enveloping the whole mace. The invisible flowing armor on the outer layer of the golden particles is gradually formed, making it capable of high-strength critical strikes as well as the armor-breaking characteristics of internal destruction. At the same time, inside the dark gray candle that makes up the mace, scorching blast energy is crazily accumulating, ready to explode at any time. This is Mr. Three's strongest attack method at present. It is based on the Overlord Color Winding Standard equipped by the Four Emperors, supplemented by Advanced Armed Color plus super powerful attack of Fruit Ability Awakening. I didn't expect that apart from the strange boosting method, you can even master this top-level power. For the first time, Kuzan showed an unbelievably solemn expression, and sighed. This is not a good time. The extreme air conditioning that kept coming out of his body meant that even he felt a strong sense of danger at this moment. Without giving Kuzan too much time to think, Mr. Three, who has increased his speed to the extreme, has appeared in front of him instantly. The black and gold mace was held high, and it smashed down with an extreme destructive force that distorted even the space. Boom. Under this blow, everything in the world was eclipsed. Just the strong wind generated created a deep gully hundreds of kilometers across the icy land. That one just now, was the Overlord Color Entanglement? Fan Oka looked at the battlefield shrouded in a huge energy storm in front of him, with cold sweat dripping from his forehead involuntarily, and murmured in a low voice, I didn't expect this damned Mr. Three to hide so deeply. It seems that this surprise attack will not be so easy to succeed. Reiju, who was also watching the battle from a distance, opened her mouth wide in shock, and didn't get over it for a long time. Even though they are separated by such a long distance, they can still clearly feel the heavy oppressive force brought by that domineering aura. Until now, Reiju didn't know what kind of mentality Mr. Three had to play with them when they were in Germa Kingdom. If they used this power right from the start, then Vinsmoke and the others would not have any power to parry at all, and even the entire Germa Kingdom would be torn apart. In the center of the battlefield, as the tyrannical energy storm subsided, the resulting billowing white smoke gradually dissipated, revealing Mr. Three and Kuzan standing in it. Several broken ice shields suspended in front of Kuzan disappeared like foam. Because of the excessive shock and the constraints of Mr. Three's domineering aura, Kuzan was unable to dodge in time and could only forcibly receive the attack. Without the domineering aura, he can't use the equivalent power, he can only push his own fruit ability to the extreme to fight. Even though his armed domineering and knowledge-colored domineering are top-notch, he still suffered substantial damage when he forcibly caught Mr. Three's triple-strength mace, and a smear of bright red blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. No wonder the Navy headquarters will give you a reward of up to 25 billion. With such strength and sophisticated strategy, this amount is still too conservative. Kuzan raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and took off the black sunglasses covered with dense cracks on his face, revealing his extremely serious eyes. Although there is still a slight gap between the man of courage in front of him and the powerhouses of Whitebeard and Kaido, the gap is not too far away. Facing an opponent of this level, it is difficult for him to maintain his usual casual calm. Only by going all out will you not lose, and this is the greatest respect for the other party. It seems that the effect of the trick just now is very good. Sensing Kuzan's rising aura, Mr. Three put the new candle mace condensed in his hand on his shoulder, his eyes flashed with fierce fighting intent. Aokiji, the former admiral of the Navy headquarters who kept his hand everywhere, is really looking forward to it. The last word fell, and the dark red arc wrapped around Mr. Three's body seemed to be pulled by some kind of force, and the speed of running and jumping suddenly accelerated, condensing into a shimmering crimson energy halo. This is the second stage of the Overlord color burning, the explosive state. I also really want to see, Mr. Three, where is your limit? Contrary to this domineering and violent aura, dense light blue frost slowly emerged around Kuzan's body. The ultra-low temperature of absolute zero completely freezes the moisture in the air, bringing a desolation of nothingness. It's sizzling. As if echoing this incomparably depressing atmosphere, a bright and dazzling giant lightning pierced the sky in the depths of the deep dark clouds accumulated to the extreme above the head. After the deafening roar of thunder, torrential rain fell. Lightning and thunder, violent storms, turbulent waves, red halos and light blue frost, fierce and domineering, collided with bitter cold. All kinds of factors are pieced together to form a stunning and exciting picture. At a certain moment, the sun, a small candle containing scorching energy, rose slowly and opened the rain curtain. The dripping wax liquid ignited dense flames, illuminating the gloomy and oppressive stormy sea. Mr. 3 was the first to break the silence, detonating the explosive properties of Candle Sun. Try this trick, Kuzan. Candle Demon Great Flame Ring. An extremely scorching small scorching sun hangs in the air, and even if it rains heavily above the head, it is difficult to extinguish this extremely high temperature. Mr. 3 stood on the burning sea level, holding a fireball in his hand, surrounded by candle flames, like a real candle demon from hell. Kuzan raised his head slightly, and the firelight was reflected in the depths of his dignified pupils. The icy cold air surrounding his body gradually became agitated, frantically converging on his right arm in a vortex shape. Countless frosts spread in all directions, and the moment the bean-sized raindrops came into contact with them, they were frozen into ice beads and scattered all over the ground. Kuzan raised his right arm covered in extreme cold, put his 5 fingers together and pointed at Mr. 3, and let out a mouthful of icy air softly. Bloody pheasant mouth. Caw 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 caw. The ice on the arm bloomed like a stormy sea, and the light blue wings slowly opened, turning into a giant icebird exuding a dangerous aura. The icy cold air and the water vapor generated by the flames burning raindrops interpenetrate. Perhaps due to the large temperature difference, there are constantly turbulent airflows falling from top to bottom, which is very strange. Bring it on. The power of the moves of both sides has been brewing to the extreme. As Mr. 3 took a step forward, the small Liang and the huge icebird shook and adjusted their respective angles one after another, and then collided violently with a boom. In an instant, the candle flames splashed, the frost shattered, and an unparalleled impact erupted, sweeping across the entire sea area. The sea was shaking, and the land made of ice and candles was torn apart. Even the dark clouds in the sky were scattered, revealing the brilliance of the sun. A simple tyrannical collision between the 4 emperors can leave an abyssal crack in the air, and this time the bombardment is a full-blown attack by generals like Mr. 3 and Kuzan. The weather environment that can shake a certain sea area is simply not too normal. The flames and the icebird collided into the obliterated center, and countless white smoke spewed out, covering the entire field of vision. Before the white smoke was blown away by the sea breeze, the extreme energy released by the flaming giant fist forcibly dispersed it. Mr. 3's arm was covered with dark gray wax, forming a fist. The domineering wax covering the armed color is constantly rotating and compressing, and at the same time, it is still spraying hot heat to the outside. This is a new move that he figured out in the collision just now. It not only has the quick fire characteristics of the big fire-breathing candle, but also has the high explosive and high injury characteristics of the Great Flame Ring. It is a more balanced and ingenious attack method between the two. Across such a long distance, I can still feel the palpitating power. Seeing that Mr. 3 has become the right arm of the giant flame fist, Kuzan couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The degree of development of this fruit's ability is too exaggerated, isn't it? Kuzan once fought against Akainu Sakaski for 10 days and 10 nights, and experienced the terrible destructive power of magma fruit very deeply. And now, from Mr. 3, he actually has a similar feeling. Under normal circumstances, seeing Aokiji's rare shocked expression, Mr. 3 would more or less pretend to say a few words. But it was obvious that he, who had turned on the overlord color-burning burst state, didn't have much time to consume after the big move fight just now. Therefore, a quick decision must be made. Mr. 3, who came to Kuzan in an instant, raised his flaming giant fist and swung it decisively. Candle Demon. Wei Yan explodes. The violent fist wind made the black cloak on Kuzan's back violently sway, and he stretched out his hand to grasp the void before he was prepared, and threw a thick ice spear violently. The fire fist and spear continued the previous flame and icebird, and once again collided violently. Mr. 3, who was covered in red circles of light, stood firm, resisted the pressure and imitated Kuzan's movements, raised his hand to hold a sharp long candle knife, and slashed at Kuzan at a sharp angle. Kuzan held the ice blade tightly in front of him with the other hand, blocking Mr. 3's slash. Immediately afterwards, the two sides broke out in a dazzling melee offensive and defensive battle again. Different from the previous candle mace, what Mr. 3 uses this time is the swift and violent double blade style. Although it is far from the level of a swordsman, every time he swings a knife, he can form a slash, not at all like a rookie holding a knife for the first time. Any swordsman randomly pulled out in the New World has his current sword skills, but in terms of power alone, there is a huge gap between the two sides. After all, Mr. 3's three-color arrogance is not comparable to these small characters, not to mention that he is still in a state of overlord color burning and bursting with all-round physical fitness. Not far away, standing in the drizzle, Fan Oka's forehead seeped a lot of sweat, and the sniper rifle he held tightly in his hand swayed from side to side, unable to find an effective attack angle. The speed of Mr. 3 and Kuzan is too fast, the flaws are fleeting, and it is difficult to catch it with his current knowledge and domineering. Although it is difficult to accept, the fact is that this battle has reached the level of a real general. Before the physical strength and mental energy of both parties are exhausted, it is difficult for him to intervene. Limited by the time limit of the overlord color burning, the fierce physical confrontation soon came to an end with Mr. 3 leaping away. The white candle overflowed at the sea level, and Mr. 3 stood on a small piece of candleland, his chest heaving slightly and panting. There were more or less scars on his face, arms, and abdomen, and the red energy halo around his body dissipated little by little, and his condition didn't look particularly good. Similarly, Kuzan, who was standing on the ice floe opposite, had a tattered skirt and suffered various degrees of trauma. It's just that compared to Mr. 3's panting and sluggish state, Kuzan's breath is slightly calmer. Monsters, like him and Akainu who can fight for 10 days and nights without eating or drinking, their physical strength and resilience are undoubtedly quite abnormal. I've been very concerned about it from the very beginning, although I don't know if I'm right. Kuzan was not in a hurry to attack, but set his gaze on the rapidly dissipating red halo on the surface of Mr. 3, and said with a surprised expression, "But your method of injecting the domineering color into your body to improve your strength should be developed by yourself. Come out?" As the former admiral of the Navy headquarters, he had a lot of dealings with the 4 emperors who had mastered the entanglement of overlord color. But I have never seen such a terrifying way to use Bawang color domineering. I realized it by chance. How about it? It's not bad, right? Mr. 3 raised his hand and pushed the goggles. In the fierce battle just now, the fragile goggle lenses have been cracked. What a terrifying talent. Kuzan sighed, with undisguised envy and shock in his tone. What I envy is that the domineering look can bring such a powerful increase effect and damage blessing. The shocking thing is Mr. 3's forbearance ability and super talent. You know, as early as a month ago, the man in front of him was still a mediocre cadre under the banner of Shichibukai Clown Buggy. Obviously you are as strong as a monster, you are too modest. Mr. 3 was about to continue to have a wave of business bragging, when suddenly, he, who was always in a state of liberation, sensed a dangerous aura coming from behind him. Bang bang bang. 3 sniper bullets struck quickly, shooting at 3 deadly positions of Mr. 3's head, neck and heart from a tricky angle that was difficult to avoid. Mr. 3 didn't panic at all, and stood there leisurely. Since the opponent blocked his dodging angle, the flowing armed domineering and extremely hard candles are the strongest defense. Dang 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 dang. The crisp sound of the bullet hitting the steel plate sounded, but Mr. 3 only felt a slight pain, and was not injured at all. It's such a clever timing. Fortunately, I'm still thinking about how to attract your attention. Mr. 3, who blocked the sniper, exploded in momentum, and a dark red energy halo was formed around his body again. The fatigue he showed just now was intentionally shown to Fan Oka in the distance. Not good. When Fan Oka realized that something was wrong and was about to use the teleportation fruit to evade, Mr. 3, who grew pure wings from behind and used angel wings to gain high-speed movement ability, had already bullied himself in front of him. The moment their eyes met, Fan Oka was overwhelmed by Mr. 3's violent and domineering aura, and couldn't use teleport immediately. The little thief who only hides in the dark and shoots coldly, I don't think I can catch you now. Mr. 3 flung out the dark gray ball of candles with his backhand, intending to seal Fan Oka completely in this way. Move me. The strong desire to survive allowed Fan Oka to break free from Mr. 3's domineering suppression at the critical moment covered by candle liquid, and successfully used the ability to teleport fruit. In the next second, he appeared on the sea level dozens of meters away. But before Fan Oka breathed a sigh of relief and continued to distance himself, as if prepared in advance, the seawater directly below suddenly spewed out endless gray wax liquid. He was caught off guard with a terrified face, and was covered by strong candles on the spot, turning into a wax figure with a strange shape. With a plop, the wax figure fell into the sea under the pull of gravity, and then slowly surfaced under the effect of buoyancy. I'm sorry. Brother's high-level domineering, not only the armed color and the domineering color. Mr. 3 retracted his wings of freedom, and landed lightly on the wax figure of Fan Oka. At the same time, the icy cold quickly spread along the sea, and Kuzan walked slowly on the light blue ice. Sorry, that guy is my partner now, can you please let him go? Against the backdrop of the tall figure, the indifferent voice brought a very heavy sense of oppression. Mr. 3 and Kuzan looked at each other for a few seconds, then simply bent their legs and sat down on the wax figure calmly. Forget it, Kuzan. I can't tell you the specific reason for now, but I know very well that you are not the kind of man who will help Blackbeard and turn the world upside down. After thinking about it, he stared into Kuzan's eyes and whispered, "You are still the same you before." Hearing this, Kuzan's pupils narrowed slightly, revealing a fleeting look of surprise. Mr. 3's eyes were extremely determined, and he didn't look like he was bluffing at all. Because of this, the doubts in his heart became more intense. "I'm still me," he said when Punk Hazard rescued Smoker, but at that time, Mr. 3 and even the members of the Cross Union were not there at all. How did the man in front of me know? Thinking of this, Kuzan slowly raised his cold arms. Under Mr. 3's gaze, put it back into the pocket. If possible, he didn't want to make this kind of default action, but Mr. 3's combat power was too much beyond expectation. Even if he used all his strength, it would be difficult to take it down. This place is not far from the base camp of the Crusaders Union. Fighting for a long time and waiting for the other side's support to arrive will only make the situation more unfavorable. That being the case, why not listen to what this man who suddenly became mysterious in front of him is thinking? If I knew you would be so difficult, I wouldn't take this surprise attack. Kuzan said pointedly, if you didn't guess wrong, it wasn't your best just now, right? Hearing this, Mr. 3 chuckled lightly, and asked back, didn't you also not use all your whole cards? As an opponent, he could clearly feel that Kuzan really wanted to defeat him at first, and he didn't hold back too much in the fight. But it is still far from reaching the level of doing everything possible. Mr. 3 made a rough estimate in his heart, with his current strength, it would not be easy to take down the physically strong Kuzan. At least, you have to pay the price of 2 wax figures in the Eternal Wax Museum to do it. So, how much do you know about me? Kuzan skipped the useless dialogue and asked openly. Only you are still you, that's all, Mr. 3 said truthfully. When he crossed over, the original book was only updated to the plot where the world government abolished the Shisabukai, and there were still several years before the end. How could it be possible to know what kind of plan and purpose Kuzan had for joining Blackbeard? That's it. Kuzan couldn't believe it. Mr. 3 stood up again, turned his head and stared at the gradually clearing sky. All in all, one thing that is certain is that you don't want Blackbeard to act recklessly like he is now, do you? After a short pause, he said with a serious face, obviously, we who have hatred against them also think the same. Since you and I both have the same purpose, why bother to fight to the death? Kuzan probably understood the meaning. Do you want me to cooperate with you? Mr. 3 shrugged and corrected. To be precise, a certain consensus has been reached, and we will try not to disturb your many actions. And in the future, if a decisive battle breaks out between the Crusaders and the Blackbeard pirates, I hope you can take advantage of it. Mr. 3 still had a slight plan to recruit Blackbeard before. After all, the ultimate goal of the Cross Guild is to overthrow the rule of the Tianlong people and I am, the mysterious and powerful god of the world. The more top-level combat power, the better. But now, Blackbeard has already done enough to ambush him, so he naturally completely dispelled this idea, and he won't just let it go. Hearing this, Kuzan stood there silently, thinking about this non-interfering cooperation proposal. Considering Mr. 3's fighting power comparable to that of the 4 emperors, and the strong background of the Cross Guild. In the end, Kuzan chose to nod in agreement. I can agree to your proposal, but Blackbeard is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Standing on the ice, Kuzan put his hands in his pockets, recalled the 2 years he had been with the Blackbeard pirates, and sighed, that guy has hidden a lot of terrifying power. Hearing the secret about Blackbeard, Mr. 3 couldn't help being interested. Is it about his physique that can eat 2 devil fruits? The original book has not revealed the vital information of Blackbeard, so it would be quite beneficial if we could know some information in advance from Aokiji. Just like the judgment made before, as time goes by, his prophetic advantage as a time traveler is gradually decreasing. In other words, the next battle and action will be the real test for him. Yes, not quite. Kuzan looked down at the wax figure of Fan Oka sitting under Mr. 3, and sighed softly. He is very good at hiding himself. Until now, I haven't got accurate information. Glancing at Mr. 3, he slowly added, in this regard, you are really on par with him. As a matter of course, he judged Mr. 3's 4 Emperor-level combat power as a hidden power. After all, how could a normal person have such amazing growth in just over a month? If you really have this kind of talent, you will already be invincible in the world. Aha, ahahaha, I have no choice but to expose my whole cards too early, but it is very difficult to survive in the cruel and ruthless world of pirates. Mr. 3 scratched his head with a smile, and explained following Aokiji's words. All in all, you'd better not act rashly before you are fully prepared. Kuzan said with serious eyes, this is not a suggestion, but an advice. Understood. Mr. 3 nodded slightly. Being able to make the former admiral of the Navy headquarters utter such cautious words, it seems that Blackbeard really has the posture of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. As expected of an existence that even the red-haired Shanks must take seriously. Speaking of which, Kuzan, what exactly do you want to do while lurking in the Blackbeard pirates? Although there was a high probability that he would not get an accurate answer, Mr. 3 couldn't help asking. Staying at the headquarters of the Navy, it is difficult to see the whole picture of the world clearly, but during the 2 years as a pirate, I have seen a lot of darkness that I never imagined before. What he never expected was that Kuzan did not evade the intention of declining. After all, he looked up at the sky. After all, it was a strange and changeable new world. In just a few minutes, the sky was already clear. It's hard to imagine that there was still a terrifying scene of lightning, thunder, and heavy rain just now. Are you referring to the world government? Mr. 3 guessed. Kuzan nodded slightly. So, I want to find out the lost historical truth. Historical truth? Mr. 3 was surprised for a moment. Robin's hometown of O'Hara, because of studying the history 800 years ago, touched the taboo of the 5 elder stars of the world government, and was destroyed by the demon-slaying order. It was because Kuzan had witnessed the ruthlessness of this tragic massacre with his own eyes that he gradually restrained his enthusiasm, and transformed into a lazy and indifferent temperament. At that time, he was still a lieutenant general of the Navy headquarters. Out of respect and admiration for his close friend Hargaval D. Soro, he chose to let Nicole Robin go, saying that he wanted to see whether Soro's decision was right or wrong. And now, Kuzan, who has been away from the Navy for more than 2 years, actually said that he wants to explore the historical truth. I see. Is this the real reason why you obeyed Blackbeard's order and went to Chocolate Island to capture Charlotte Bryn? Mr. 3 said. According to the dialogue between Onishima War's Big Mom and Kaido, three-eyed people like Bryn can gain the ability to interpret ancient texts as long as they awaken the power of the third eye. If this statement is true, it is not difficult to understand why Blackbeard and even Kuzan took the opportunity to go to 10,000 Kingdoms to take Bryn away. This is simply equivalent to the second Nicole Robin. I didn't expect you to even know this. Kuzan once again admired Mr. 3's intelligence capabilities. In this regard, Mr. 3 shrugged and explained generously. After all, our cross guild is still in alliance with the Big Mom pirates headed by Katakuri, and this level of information can still be easily obtained. Combine most of the Shichibukai, the Big Mom pirates of the alliance, and maintain a good relationship with the Straw Hat pirates and the Red Hair pirates. You and Buggy have done things that were difficult for the 4 emperors in the past. Kuo-zan sighed with emotion. Maybe, the scale of the Cross Guild may surpass the Rocks pirates of the previous era and become the strongest in history. Seeing this, Mr. 3 couldn't help flashing a bold idea in the back of his mind, and looked at Kuzan and let out a hey laugh. If the Crusaders can really get rid of Blackbeard, what about Kuzan? Will you come to our side then? Through the short and intense fight just now, Mr. 3 has thoroughly seen Kuzan's strength as a former veteran admiral. If such combat power can be included in the bag, the comprehensive strength and reputation of the Cross Union will definitely be greatly improved. You are so arrogant, even I want to recruit. Kuzan chuckled. What made Mr. 3 very excited was that he didn't say no directly on the spot. That is to say, there is a play. In this way, the reward for killing Blackbeard may be able to add a former admiral of the Navy headquarters in advance. The smile on the corner of Mr. 3's mouth became more intense, and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Thinking that it has been delayed for a long time, Kuzan raised his finger and pointed to the wax figure of Van Oka under Mr. 3, and stopped talking about this topic. Let's talk about this kind of thing later. Your people will arrive here soon. Can you let me bring people back first? In order not to let his actions be exposed and cause Blackbeard to be alert, as a core member, Van Oka can't have an accident for the time being. In fact, if Kuzan wanted to capture Mr. 3 alive before the fierce battle between the two sides, it would be impossible to tell so many secrets to Mr. 3. Aside from the powerful talent and potential, the decisive factor for Kuzan to make a change and agree to cooperate is actually the recent Tianlongren attack and kidnapping incident. There is no doubt that the Tianlong people are the source of power and evil in this world, and they have received unconditional protection from the world government. As the former admiral of the Navy headquarters directly under the world government, Kuzan knows this truth better than anyone else. Therefore, the pirates who dare to face this kind of existence head-on, no matter what their interests are worthy of admiration. If Mr. 3 knew Kuzan's true thoughts at this time, he probably couldn't help but give a thumbs up to Buggy, who is the holder of the Overlord luck. As expected of God Buggy, just relying on an accidental slip, he can create such a far-reaching impact. In the end, Mr. 3 naturally let Van Oka go with great cooperation. Although this guy is the core cadre of the Blackbeard pirates, he has precise sniper techniques and almost unsolvable teleportation ability. But from the battle just now, it is not difficult to see that these two things can't play a decisive role in the face of the powerful three-color domineering, let alone a major threat. In order to dispel Blackbeard's doubts, accept the result of the failure of Kuzan and Van Oka's actions. At Kuzan's request, Mr. 3 left an indelible candle wound on his chest. So far, this unexpected sea raid by the Blackbeard pirates came to an end with the wounded Kuzan leading Van Oka to evacuate. And not long after, Mr. 3, together with Reiju, boarded the main ship of the Crusaders led and supported by Buggy himself. 3. When I heard that you were ambushed by the Blackbeard pirates at sea, I thought you must be dead this time, and even the tombstone was erected for you in Kale Bali. As soon as we met, Buggy, who was wearing a big red robe, let out a sinister smile. I never thought that you would be so hardworking and able to persist under Kuzan's hands for such a long time. With a cheap expression and tone, people can't help but want to beat him up. Mr. 3, who has obtained an epic level of promotion, can easily feel the obvious anxiety and panic from Buggy. Although this treacherous villain is greedy for life and afraid of death, and can do anything to save his own life, he still takes good care of his brothers. After all, it is a pirate who came out of the atmosphere of the Roger pirates. It's just that the mouth is a bit cheap. Can he last that long under Kuzan? Reiju, who stood behind Mr. 3, frowned slightly. Thinking of the strong battle that subverted her cognition just now, she couldn't help but feel a strong sense of surprise in her heart. Could it be that Buggy the Clown, the strongest member of the Cross Guild in front of him, doesn't know the true strength of Mr. 3? She is a smart person. Since Mr. 3 did not explain, she continued to keep silent and stood still. However, what happened next was far beyond her comprehension. Buggy. What the hell are you talking about? If you want a tombstone so much, I'll make you one right now. Mr. 3 clapped his palms, and actually created a tombstone with candles engraved on it in front of Buggy. Galdino, don't think that you can do whatever you want because you have the wax fruit ability. Seeing that his name was clearly engraved on the tombstone, Buggy's anger rose immediately, and he started to spout. I heard the news that I didn't even wear pants, so I rushed here with someone, and you showed me this kind of thing? Since Kuzan failed to kill you, let me end your meaningless little life. Definitely kill. Buggy flying fist. After all, Buggy used his fruit ability to attack Mr. 3. Mr. 3 was naturally not to be outdone, rolled up his cuffs and went straight to meet him. It just so happened that he, who had just experienced a big battle, needed to relax his tense muscles and bones. Obviously, Buggy would be a good fit. Under the gaze of Reiju's staring eyes, who had a sudden change in painting style, Buggy the Four Emperors and Mr. 3 the Emperor's deputy, just like fighting with street gangsters, wrestled together on the deck of the battleship. All kinds of dirty methods of inserting eyes and pulling out birds emerge in endlessly. Looking at Mr. 3, who was seriously immersed in it, Reiju couldn't calm down for a long time. She really couldn't associate this man with the strong man who stood upright and exuded a sense of security just now. Moreover, Buggy, the clown of the new Four Emperors, seems to be quite different from the vicious and sinister appearance on the poster. When she was surprised and shocked, suddenly, a low sob came from the ears of Reiju wearing the earphones of the battlesuit. Woo! That's great, Third brother, you're safe and sound. Wearing a black wallet, the sassy girl with short red hair had tears on her pretty face, and her dark blue eyes stared motionlessly at Mr. 3 in the field. Her admiration was beyond words. Reiju quickly recognized the other party's identity. A senior cadre of the Cross Union with a bounty of 5,000 million, Ayasa, the Witch of Evil. With a reward of 5,000 million, it can definitely be regarded as a big pirate in the new world. But Reiju looked at the little girl in front of her, eyes full of Mr. 3, she really couldn't feel the heavy pressure from the big pirate. Having said that, it's really an exaggeration, a battlefield of this level. Not far away, sat under a sun umbrella, his eyes solemnly sweeping across the sea area with countless floating ice wax blocks. Buggy's nerves are relatively large, or his attention is all on Mr. 3, and it's quite normal not to notice the mess on the battlefield, but the thoughtful crocodile is different. Judging from the evenly matched scene in front of him, Mr. 3 has a great possibility to fight Kuzan back and forth. Thinking of the terrifying sense of oppression shown by Kuzan in the top war, the shock in his heart became more and more intense. He couldn't imagine how powerful Mr. 3 is now. Not long ago, he had had a similar dreamy feeling. That was when he learned that the Straw Hat Boy who almost died in his hands 2 years ago was able to defeat Kaido, who is known as the strongest creature in the sea, land and air. Is this the so-called luck bonus? Crocodile suddenly felt that the worldview he had built up over the years was collapsing little by little. However, he didn't show excessive panic. After all, these two guys who were favored by fate were their own. For such a fleeting moment, the high-spirited and ambitious Sand even wanted to lie flat like this. According to my own understanding, with the power that Guy currently possesses, maybe even Kuzan really can't do anything about it. Wearing a beautiful purple cheongsam, Hancock took a cup of black tea and took a sip gracefully. Compared with the disbelief on Crocodile's face, she who sat on the pink boa constrictor with her slender legs crossed over was much calmer and calmer. After all, she is the only cadre in the Cross Guild, apart from the guardian Pluto Rayleigh, who knows that Mr. 3 has mastered the Overlord color winding and Overlord color burning. Especially in the past few days, after in-depth research on the Overlord color burning, and knowing the horror of this kind of power, Hancock is more certain that even if he is attacked by surprise, Mr. 3 will definitely be able to retreat unscathed. Hey, there's nothing unusual about the former admiral of the Navy headquarters. The third brother is so powerful, so it's not normal to be able to repel him. The tall and mighty figure exuded a palpitating coercion. Weevil squatted on the ground holding the Ozeki knife, and let out a silly smile. Weevil didn't know Mr. 3's many cards. He also defeated the former Admiral Zephyr, but he simply believed in the strength of the third brother. After the Miss Bacon incident, under the malicious guidance of Ayasha, he now regards the Cross Union as his new affiliation. Reiju stood in place tensely. The reformer's strong psychological quality allowed her to keep her face calm and calm. But the shock in my heart was quite obvious. Although I have heard about it for a long time, it is only when I really watch the former Shichibukai-level powerhouses of the Cross Guild at close range that I can deeply experience the strong sense of oppression that is almost real. And this is only half of the cadres of the Cross Union. Soon, the war between Mr. 3 and Buggy ended with both noses and faces swollen. After leading the new team member Vinsmoke Reiju to get to know each other, Mr. 3 claimed that he needed to rest, and led by Ayasha, he came to the lounge of the battleship. His goal is very clear, that is to take this opportunity to check the system panel that has appeared in the back of his mind since just now. Dimensional Training Manual. Handbook for Hitting Workers, a training manual carefully crafted for the core cadres of the Buggy Pirates. After a deep understanding of the past and ideals of the cadres, you can get permanent pointers to the corresponding training places. Refer to Straw Hat Pirates 2 years ago. The practice of group members. Effect. After the cadre cultivates successfully, he can get 30% of his practice results. Current progress. Yalita, completed, obtained mace use skills, some physical skills, domineering, spiritual power. Lionliji, completed, obtained dual knife skills, some physical skills, domineering, and spiritual power. Kabaji, niche, in progress, to be completed soon. New World, Pirate Paradise Beehive Island, the highest point of the skeleton-shaped building. The black beard sitting on the main seat was dressed in gold and silver, and there were several sexy beauties with superb figure and appearance attached to his body. Looking at Kuzan and Fan Oka standing in front of them and reporting the surprise attack, the owner of the Hive Island couldn't help frowning. That is to say, that damn guy Galdino not only has the knowledge color of predicting the future, but even learned the entanglement of the king's color? Kuzan, who put on the black sunglasses again, put his hands in his pockets, not intending to answer the conversation. As a veteran cadre, Fan Oka naturally received Blackbeard's task of monitoring Kuzan in advance, but after witnessing the fierce confrontation at sea, even he could only answer truthfully with lingering fear.
Probably nothing will go wrong. Although it is not as domineering and powerful as Kaido and the red-haired people, the club that Mr. 3 slammed at that time did split the sky.
Recalling the red energy halo that appeared all over Mr. 3 at that time, he pondered for a while, and the dignified Fan Oka continued. Moreover, that guy has also mastered a way of using domineering overlord color that has never been seen before, and can improve his physical fitness several times in a short period of time. Blackbeard's eyes flickered, showing disbelief. What did you say, several times the physical fitness? Due to the excessive shock, the strength of his arm was a little uncontrollable, and it was tightly tightened. The slender beauty in his arms immediately felt a sharp pain and cried out in pain. However, Blackbeard completely ignored the beauty's painful wailing, and fixed his eyes on Fan Oka. Do you know how he did it? His physique itself is very special, he cannot sleep for a long time, and he can accommodate 2 devil fruits, so he is naturally very interested in this ability of improving his physique with arrogance. I'm not too clear about the specific situation. Kuzan, who was fighting him head-on, may have a more detailed understanding. Fan Oka naturally threw this question to Kuzan beside him. Blackbeard immediately set his eyes on Kuzan. Kuzan, with a calm face, did not answer immediately, but pulled his arm out of his pocket, casually pointing at the pale-faced beauty in Blackbeard's arms who was about to die. Captain Titch, if you don't let go, this woman will die. Hearing this, Blackbeard reacted belatedly and slowed down the strength on his thick arms. Seeing this, Kuzan no longer hesitated, let out a breath of cold air like a sigh, and said slowly, to put it simply, it is to wrap the domineering aura, and act on the internal organs of the body, even on the blood, muscles and bones, so as to achieve the effect of forcibly improving the physique. This principle is quite simple. Even if he doesn't say it, he can guess the general idea through Fan Oka's description of the whole battle. The most difficult thing is what means are needed to turn it into reality. Although Kuzan does not have the domineering look, he believes that this kind of move is definitely not something that can be developed casually. Otherwise, wouldn't those veteran powerhouses who have mastered the tyranny for many years think of this usage? That is to say, is the overlord color entwined in the body? Blackbeard lowered his head thoughtfully. This kind of subtle movement fell into Kuzan's eyes, and it seemed difficult to understand. He has been in touch for so long, but he doesn't know that Tiki can use the overlord color to entangle. Not to mention the entanglement of overlord color, even the ordinary overlord color domineering has never appeared. Hee. Damn Galdino, it's really well hidden. After pondering for tens of seconds, and realizing the high risk of this method, even Blackbeard couldn't help sighing coldly. Perhaps, this man in the clown buggy will be our most difficult enemies besides the red-haired Shanks. A bloody and cruel voice came from the corner in the cold. It was Shilu of the Rain, who was wearing a gray leather coat and raised his hand to wipe his weapon. Era makes heroes, not to mention this chaotic era, isn't it? The black beard shook the wine glass handed over by the beauty, and acted casually about it. He has Shilu of the Rain, many of the most vicious criminals in the city, and Kuzan's top combat power, so he has no fear at all. And today, their Blackbeard pirates will usher in the most powerful ally. Little ones, the surprise attack against Mr. 3 failed this time, and the Crusades will definitely step up their vigilance, so let's leave them alone for the time being. Blackbeard pushed away the many beauties who were sticking to his body, slowly stood up from his seat, looked at the coast of the Hive Island through the skeleton eyes of the skeleton building, and grinned. Thief, ha 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 ha. Just in time, I feel a terrible aura coming to the island. Now, let's go out and welcome this friend who came from afar. Friends from afar? Kuzan was shocked when he heard this. His perception is no weaker than that of Blackbeard, so he can naturally sense the terrifying coercion emanating from the distant coast. At this time, if Blackbeard gets a powerful ally, it will undoubtedly have a great impact on his next plan. With vague uneasiness, Kuzan followed the Blackbeard pirates slowly. At the entrance square of Hive Island, they met a mysterious strong man who suddenly landed on the island. Actually, could it be this guy? Even the calm Kuzan, when he saw the other person's appearance, his eyes still throbbed uncontrollably, showing a look of shock. The rest of the black group cadres who didn't know, especially the guy who had stayed on the 6th floor of the city, also stared at the tall figure in disbelief, and stood there for a long time speechless. In the center of the pirate square, A man with a strong body and the scars of artillery bombardment on his body crossed his arms, stepping on a pile of scattered pirate soldiers. His eyes were as sharp and fierce as a ghost, and his body was domineering, revealing a strong coercion. The ally that this man Blackbeard said turned out to be the successor of the ghost, the legendary pirate Douglas Barrett. On the other side, the waters near Kale Bali. A two-masted pirate ship flying the skeleton pirate flag is sailing towards its destination. They are pirates under the banner of the Blackbeard Pirates. The captain's code name is Greybeard, and the bounty is 2,000 million. Captain, our current route is only 2 nautical miles away from the waters of the Cross Union, or should we take a detour and take a long way? The navigator of the pirate group hurried over and made a proposal to the Greybeard on the deck. Detour. What about the Cross Union? Behind us is Admiral Blackbeard. The Greybeard was huge and slightly bloated, and he didn't listen to the navigator's words at all. He waved his hand and said, "Who do you think I am? Just let me pass the boat like this." As soon as the voice fell, there was a buzz, and the sturdy pirate ship was violently shaken by a huge force. What happened? The Greybeard, who was still arrogant just now, was startled, and nervously pulled out the big knife at his waist. Looking up, I saw a huge sea beast in the shape of a bull's head floating out of the sea, madly hitting the side hull of the pirate ship with its hard head. On the head of the huge bull-headed sea beast stood a man in a white fur coat and holding a taming whip. Who? I am the captain of the Blackbeard Pirates of the 4 Emperors. If you are interested, please stay away from me. Being able to hang out in the new world where the strong are like clouds, the Greybeard's eyesight is naturally not weak. Seeing that even the ferocious sea beasts on the other side can be controlled, most of them are difficult to deal with, they immediately took out the banner of the Blackbeard Pirates. That's such a coincidence. I recently heard that the Blackbeard Pirates have offended our cross guild many times. A calm and magnetic female voice came from the depths of the pirate ship's deck. Greybeard and the other younger brothers took a quick look, only to see a glamorous woman in cool clothes and a pirate hat walking slowly. On the slender and fair shoulders, the black mace covered with spikes exudes a cold light. Against the backdrop of the sexy figure, it reveals a strange and wild atmosphere. Stop drooling. Fuck me directly. Greybeard's heart skipped a beat when he heard the name of the Crusaders' Union. Knowing that today was probably going to be difficult, he decisively raised his big knife and rushed towards Alvida, who was opposite. Since the battle is inevitable, then take advantage of the opponent's inattention and kill her by surprise. It's a pity that the opponent he encountered this time was more insidious and cunning than himself. Whizzing. The silver beast shadow flashed, and the 2 intersecting slashes swung out with lightning speed, directly slashing on Greybeard's muscular chest. Lines of bright red blood surged out, splashing all over the deck of the pirate ship. The lion Li Kei, lurking in the dark, is holding a long knife in his front paws, with sharp animal eyes and a flamboyant posture. The pet of the Cross Union, the white lion with a bounty of Bailey? Perhaps because the lion's appearance was too obvious and special, Greybeard recognized his identity immediately. Hearing the damned bounty, the lion Li Kei, who had returned from practice, became angry immediately, adjusted the angle of the long knife in his claws, and slashed at Greybeard's head. The bounty is the pain of its life, and it is absolutely not allowed to be taken out by outsiders. Clang. Only this time, Lion Lakey's slash didn't work. Greybeard blocked the sharp slash with his domineering broadsword covered in armor. After all, it is a pirate with a bounty of more than 100 million. Although the pirate group under Blackbeard has a lot of water, it still has the most basic strength. It's just a mere pet, don't let me be so arrogant. Greybeard resisted the severe pain in his chest, pushed the knife violently, and forcibly knocked Lion Li Kei back. Afterwards, he took advantage of the victory to pursue, held the handle of the knife with his backhand, and slashed down on Li Kei's neck. Puff. The sharp blade pierced through the body, bringing out a bright red. You guys, actually engaged in a sneak attack. The Greybeard, whose heart had been pierced, spurted blood from his mouth, and lay in a pool of blood with a plop. At the last second of his life, he saw a unicycle running over his face. Hey, isn't it a little too naive to talk about morality with pirates? Kabaji, wearing a slender blue and white scarf, drew his sword from the Greybeard's corpse with a sinister face. Captain, the captain has been killed. We can't beat it, we definitely can't beat it. The strongest captains all fell down, and the remaining pirate boys naturally didn't have the slightest thought of resisting. They threw away their weapons one after another, ran to the fence of the pirate ship, jumped down, and jumped into the sea to escape for their lives. However, this is precisely the fastest way to die. The animal trainer Moki, who lost his fat and became strong again, jumped onto the deck and slapped the animal taming whip in his hand. The bull-headed sea beast that received the order let out a roar of "Mo," turned its head and dived into the sea, and swam towards the little pirate who was fleeing in a hurry. There were screams one after another, and soon, the sea area around the pirate ship was stained red with blood. The opponent is the evil pirate group, and it is under the banner of Blackbeard, so Mochi and the others are merciless in their actions. Sure. Moki, I never thought that you can completely tame even a sea beast of that level. The acrobat Kabaji rode on a unicycle, looked at the raging sea monster, and asked Moki, "You can't even control the Sea King?" Coincidentally, they who cultivated in different dimension islands actually ran into each other when they returned. How could it be possible to control monsters like Sea Kings? This sea beast, which is about the size of an ordinary pirate ship, is basically my limit. Mochi shrugged helplessly. On the way back, he once tried to tame a Sea King, but he was almost swallowed alive. This is quite powerful, and I see that your physical skills seem to be quite powerful, right? Alvida walked over boldly with a mace in hand. That's natural. I have experienced countless life and death before I got this power, Moki said with emotion. Thinking of the difficult training during this period, a touch of sadness emerged in his heart. Who isn't, and I don't know where that damn bastard Galdino got the permanent pointer. Speaking of the cultivation on the mysterious island, Alvida was deeply touched. The orangutan who can use the four emperors Kaido's unique skill of thunder and gossip, and the fat pig monster with rough skin and thick flesh like a steel balloon, have been lingering nightmares in the back of her mind for a long time. Hee, it seems that everyone has the same experience. A sinister look flashed in Kabaji's eyes. Since that's the case, we, who have become extremely powerful now, should let Shao-san see what terror is. As a matter of course, his address changed from third brother to little three. I agree, but don't hit too hard later, I'm afraid it will hurt Shao-san's self-esteem. Beast trainer Mochi laughed. It's not good to do that, that guy is our companion after all. Alvida showed an unbearable expression, but the style of painting changed suddenly in the next second, and she said underhandedly, "You can't handle this kind of thing that hits your companions, so leave it to me." Also, as a member of the Atmosphere group, Lion Lakey also raised his paw cooperatively to express his agreement. Although the third brother treats it pretty well, in order to prove its own cultivation achievements and successfully demonstrate its strength in front of everyone, it can only, reluctantly, make sacrifices. Thinking of the embarrassing appearance of the high-spirited Mr. 3 being beaten to the bum by himself and begging for mercy, several people let out a "Poochie," and couldn't help but smirk. Crusader Union Battleship, Cabin Lounge. Through simple learning, Mr. 3 quickly got used to the mace brought by Alvida, which is Kaido's signature move, Thunder Gossip. This trick doesn't require much skill. To put it simply, it is to swing out the stick with both hands, and it needs the blessing of armed domineering and domineering color. Coincidentally, Mr. 3 has both of these things, and he has cultivated to a very powerful level. The physique of the steel balloon slightly enhanced the body's ability to resist blows. As for Lion Ricky's double knife style, it has been reflected in the battle with Aokiji, allowing Mr. 3 to have basic sword fighting skills. In the same way, with the blessing of the Overlord Entanglement, although his slashes are mediocre, they are powerful enough to crush most swordsmen. This is the importance of domineering. Immediately afterwards, as the system prompt sounded deep in his mind, the remaining training rewards of Kabaji and animal trainer Moki were also presented. Dimensional Practice Manual, Current Progress. Alvida, completed. Lion Niche, completed. Kabaji, completed. Acquired one-handed sword, unicycle skills, some physical skills, domineering, spiritual power. Beast Tamer Moki, completed. Obtained the taming skills of listening to animal sounds, some physical skills, domineering, spiritual power. Kabaji's one-handed sword skills are a bit repetitive to Lion Lakey's, and they don't have much research value, but Mochi's training rewards make Mr. 3's eyes shine. That's right. Listening to the voices of animals just sounds very similar to the mysterious power, listening to the voices of all things, mastered by Roger Luffy Momonosuke. Although this ability has not been revealed in too many details in the original work, there is no doubt that it is definitely a rarer power than the Overlord Domineering. Mr. 3's eyes were slightly closed, and under the perception of domineering, he spread his consciousness to all directions. You can clearly hear the noise of Buggy's people on the deck, the sound of the sea wind blowing on the sails, and the sound of the battleship pushing away the current. This is the effect that knowledge-colored domineering inherently possesses. In addition, Mr. 3 did not capture the battleship ship spirit, or the sound of other dead things. It seems that this ability is far inferior to listening to the voice of all things, or that I don't have the corresponding qualifications now. Mr. 3 slowly opened his eyes, and lay down on the bed in another position. This kind of ability is not like Liu Ying and Tyrant, it can really improve his own combat power, so he is not in a hurry. Thinking of this, Mr. 3 moved slightly and opened the long-lost system panel. The strongest Emperor subsystem, host, Mr. 3. Appearance, charm of personality, 90, physical fitness, SS. Luck value, A+S, Buggy the Clown Camp has its own buff, which will disappear when you leave. Abilities. Wax Fruit, Awakened, Breakthrough Progress, 0/3, Armed Color Domineering, Advanced, Liu Ying, Knowledge Color Domineering, Advanced, Foreseeing the Future, Domineering Color Domineering, Advanced, Ba Tang. Props. Different Dimension Practice Manual, completed, Former Admiral Aokiji Sea Bicycle, 60% progress in making a black car, Eternal Wax Museum, capacity, 3, Wings of Liberty, Vegapunk Mysterious Technology Box *1. Main line goal. Omitted, target rewards 1 to 5. Completed, rated A, D, S, S, S. Target reward 6. Fruit Ability Development Capsule, Vegapunk Mysterious Technology Box, 3 color domineering, choose 1 to upgrade, teacher to be determined. Subtask. Hancock's Transcendence, completed. Subtask. Weevil's Righteous Extermination of Relatives, completed. Subline target. The honorific title of Make Shout, Third Brother, from the bottom of his heart. Target reward. Fruit ability adds Iron Sand effect. Sub-question. Doflamingo's Trust. Successfully gain Doflamingo's heartfelt trust and admiration. Target reward. The Secret of Tinlongren, 3 color domineering enhancement. Moria's Invincible Heart. Help Moria regain the confidence in fighting against Kaido. Target reward. Shadow Space. After receiving the comprehensive reward from the different dimensional training manual, Mr. 3's physique successfully reached the SS level. Coupled with the acquired combat skills such as the double knife style, even if he puts aside the awakened fruit ability, he can definitely rank among the top powerhouses with only physical skills. Looking at the light blue system panel, Mr. 3 began to think about the next course of action. Through the conversation with Kuzan, it is not difficult to find that there must be something terrible hidden in Blackbeard. If there is no complete preparation, launching an attack on Hive Island will probably suffer a big loss. At the same time, it is also necessary to consider the allies of the Blackbeard pirates, other pirate forces, especially the Navy headquarters and the world government headed by Akainu. An all-out war broke out between the 4 royal regiments is no small matter, and it needs to be considered in the long run to ensure nothing goes wrong. In the end, it's because it's not strong enough. Mr. 3 propped his chin with one hand, muttering in a low voice. It is difficult to make obvious breakthroughs in the scientific and technological research of super weapons in a short period of time, and the training manual of different dimensions has been completed. Therefore, he naturally set his sights on the recruitment of the main line and the branch goals of the 7 Wuhei. Currently, only Mihawk the Hawkeye, Tiki the Blackbeard, and Trafalgaro are left to meet the main task of the Shisabukai. Blackbeard, who has become a mortal enemy, is definitely impossible, and Hawkeye is arrogant and powerful, so it is unlikely to bow down to others. In contrast, Trafalgaro itself is slightly more difficult to recruit. But his whereabouts are uncertain, and there is a deep hatred between him and Doflamingo, who has become a cadre of the Cross Union. With this alone, the difficulty has been raised by more than one level. After much deliberation, Mr. 3 decided to return to Kale Bali and ask Hawkeye again for his opinion on joining. If he still maintains the original alliance attitude, then temporarily focus on the branch goal of Chi Wuhai at this stage. After the completion is almost complete, a new system reward stage will be opened directly, the 4 Emperors Hegemony. The rewards for Chi Wuhai's recruitment allowed me to have the current Emperor level combat power. I don't know how powerful the rewards for the 4 Emperors contest can make me be. In the anticipation of Mr. 3, the Crusader Union battleship pushed away the waves and headed for the distant Kale Bali Island. At the same time, the Wano country, which is far away, is at the bottom of the ground. 2 huge sleeping figures were suspended in the center of the magma, and the domineering energy erupted subconsciously from their bodies protected their lives invisibly. The flow of magma brings extremely burning high temperature and dead silence. At a certain moment, Kaido's stiff fingers moved slightly, his eyes slowly opened, and his consciousness gradually regained consciousness. The domineering pupils rolled, and Kaido soon realized the terrible environment he was in. It's sizzling. The powerful domineering suddenly bloomed, pushing away the surrounding magma, opening up a not-so-open space. After being relieved, Kaido tightly held the mace in his hand, and yelled at the ant beside him in a deep voice. Hey! Bad old woman, how long do you want to sleep? In the afternoon, the warship of the Crusaders finally arrived at Kale Bali. To everyone's surprise, they were ambushed as soon as they got off the battleship and stepped on the soft and cool beach. Accompanied by loud and piercing chirping sounds, dark clouds quickly approached from the depths of the island forest. It was a group of ferocious black crows. That is, the fire-eyed crow that lives on the island? Buggy, who was standing in front of the team, frowned slightly, showing a puzzled expression. There are many birds and beasts on the island, but they have always been well behaved and would not take the initiative to attack people. Why did they suddenly become so violent now? Buggy didn't think much about it. He took a step forward, and the special buggy bullets on the soles of his feet were ready to move. He is only a yo-yo in the face of the Admiral and Emperor of the Sea, but it is more than enough to deal with a few crows that don't have long eyes. Let me come. If I guess correctly, the target of these birds is me. Mr. 3 slowly walked up to Buggy and stopped him. Hearing the cursing voices of the crows, combined with the completion prompt of the previous different dimensional training manual, it was easy to guess the situation in front of him. He stood there with a calm expression, until the crows were only a few meters away from him, his eyes narrowed slightly. The extremely domineering aura erupted in an instant, and Mr. 3 didn't even use his serious domineering aura, and the crows in the sky were frightened and screamed, flapping their wings and fleeing around. Black wings fluttered, covering the entire beach. After easily eliminating the group of crows, Mr. 3 raised his hand and nudged the goggles, his eyeballs turned and landed on the scattered reefs on the side. Manipulating the crow to feign an attack, and hiding in the dark to prepare for a sneak attack. It's really insidious. As soon as Mr. 3 muttered to himself, the next second, a white figure suddenly jumped out from behind the rocks, rushing towards him at an extremely fast speed. The animal trainer, Moki, landed on all fours and ran wildly like a beast. He rushed to Mr. 3 and jumped up and down, covering his domineering right fist of light black armed color with blue veins. Hey, surprise me, San? Give me a violent beast punch. Boom. A dull sound came out, and Mr. 3, who had predicted all of Mochi's movements in advance, raised his arm, and lightly blocked the punch. Nani? Mochi's eyes widened, his arm muscles swelled, and he wanted to use brute force to knock Mr. 3 back. Seeing that he had used up all his strength to nurse, and Mr. 3 in front of him remained motionless, the confident animal trainer who had returned from practice was a little dazed for a while. It's okay, Moki, I've lost all my body fat. Mr. 3 praised with a chuckle. Mochi was about to respond, but unexpectedly Mr. 3 didn't talk about martial arts. He directly raised his other arm, and punched him heavily on the chest. Boom. The powerful punch made Moki dizzy, his legs were weak, and he swayed and fell limp to the ground. The time from Moki's attack to his fall was only a few seconds. Buggy and others who were standing behind couldn't figure out what was going on. A unicycle fell from the sky and hit Mr. 3 straight. Mr. 3 raised his hand to cover the arm domineering, wanting to just pick up the unicycle. However, the tire of the unicycle in midair suddenly blew out, spraying out overwhelming circus ribbons, covering Mr. 3's vision. Hee, I'm not like that guy Mochi, rushing forward in a daze. The acrobat Kabaji charged forward on another unicycle, holding a western sword in his hand. Just when he was about to slash through the air, the crow, which was scared and fled before, turned back again, surrounded him and pecked at him. It's indeed a little smarter, but unfortunately not much. Mr. 3 instantly walked behind Kabaji, whose scalp was numb from being harassed by the crow, and punched him flying with a simple and rough punch, and precisely stacked on top of the animal trainer Moki. Lion Chikiri Valley. Lion Liji quickly rushed out from the dark corner, the two long knives on his paws exuded a faint cold light. Whizzing. Sensing the dangerous aura, Mr. 3 just turned around, and the lightning-fast double knife flow has already landed on his chest, leaving behind two terrifying cross-cutting strikes. Lion Liji, who passed by Mr. 3, looked calm, and slowly stood up straight, with two long knives sheathed leisurely in his claws. But Mr. 3 snorted and knelt down on his knees, the red liquid overflowed along the severed chest and flowed all over the ground. Lion Liji, who had finished pretending to be aggressive, looked back, and after a moment of stupefaction, The calmness on Lion's face collapsed in an instant, turning into panic, regret and grief. Ah. Oops, I accidentally used all my strength. I actually killed the third brother. Recalling all the things with the third brother before, Li Kei's eyes were immediately filled with hot tears, and he knelt down limply as if all his strength had been taken out, crying loudly. Such a gesture of feeling extremely good about himself made Mr. 3 laugh on the spot. It's not Li Qi. What gave you the illusion that you can kill me? He took back the red wax and stood up, covering his domineering chest without leaving even a single scar. After learning to listen to the voices of animals, he naturally has the ability to understand most animal languages. Just like Chopper. Li Kei grinned happily when he saw the third brother who had been killed by his own accident stood up again. It's a pity that before he finished laughing, Mr. 3's straight punch came in front of him, and it was blown away without any accident, lying on Moki and Kabaji. Really, I told you a long time ago not to be too inflated. If you rashly fight with a sinister and cunning guy like 3, you will only suffer losses. Everyone still doesn't believe it. After turning on the steel balloon physique, Alvida appeared with a mace on her back and became obese again. He glanced contemptuously at the group of mochis, his freckled face was full of disdain. Oh. Listening to this, it seems that you are quite confident, Alvida. Seeing that the previous sexy beauty turned into this strong state, Mr. 3's eyelids twitched, and he was unavoidably surprised. I have to say that the body proportions of One Piece world are sometimes exaggerated. Thinking of this, Mr. 3 pinched his backhand towards the void, and held the hard candle mace in his hand. That's for sure. The suffering my wife has suffered during this period is comparable to hell, so how can they compare? Seeing that Mr. 3 used the same weapon as her own, Alvida couldn't help but twitch the corners of her mouth and became angry, and this is all thanks to your practice proposal, Mr. 3. After all, Alvida's plump palm holding the mace burst out with enormous strength, pouring out all the domineering arrogance of the armed color. With a ferocious aura and a huge figure, not to mention, there is really such a sense of oppression like thunder and gossip. It's a pity that what Alvida is facing now is Mr. 3 who already has the initial imperial combat power. Boom. Under the waving of their respective masters, the two maces bombarded together like powerful cannonballs. Armed color domineering collided with each other, and the resulting shock waves swept in all directions. But that's all there is to it. Because in the next second, the mace in Alvida's hand was knocked into the air by Mr. 3's Liu Ying, and hit the rock with a boom. Giving up his life. Flowing domineering, this is an advanced usage of armed color. The powerful force made Alvida's arms tremble, and after realizing that the domineering Mr. 3 used was far above her own, her plump face was full of astonishment. You guessed it right, so this is a reward for you. Mr. 3 smiled slightly, and kicked out directly in the air, kicking the fat version of Alvida into the air, and with a bang, it landed on top of Kabaji and the others with a beautiful parabolic trajectory. Puff. The heavy pressure followed, and the animal trainer Moki, who was pressed at the bottom, had his eyeballs cracked, blushed, and planed on the beach with his hands and feet. Help! Help! I'm dying, please help! They came back from practice and wanted to show their strength, beat Mr. 3 to the bum and begged for mercy on his knees, and barely completed the second half. Well, I was beaten to the crap. So far, the sneak attack launched by the Alvida quartet came to an end with Mr. 3's complete victory. Afterwards, Alvida, who had become a sexy beauty again, rubbed her abdomen in pain, and looked into the depths of Mr. 3's beautiful eyes, full of resentment. I read the recent newspaper before coming here, and thought it was fake news. From this point of view, Mr. 3, you are so powerful that even the Admiral of the Navy can't be taken down in a short time. After recovering, Moki squatted on the ground, frowning tightly, puzzled. It's really strange, haven't we become stronger? Why are we still killed in seconds? Through the short fight just now, he quite clearly felt the invisible oppression emanating from Mr. 3. It's unbelievable, that it seems that as long as Mr. 3 stares, he will lose all his body's resistance. You have indeed become stronger, but Mr. 3's growth rate is far above you. A steady voice came from behind the beach. The black and red cloak fluttered in the sea breeze, and the crossed black knife on the back flashed a domineering cold light. The person who made the sound was none other than the world's #1 swordsman, Hawkeye Mihawk. Even I have to admire the speed at which this bastard grows stronger. You guys, just accept your fate obediently. Biting a big cigar, went forward. Behind Hawkeye, Doflamingo and Moonlight Moria appeared one after another. After catching the fighting atmosphere on the beach, they came here to take a look out of caution. Mihawk, Doflamingo, and Mariah, you are all here. Mr. 3 looked at the three who came. Behind him, Buggy, Hancock, Ayasha and others slowly followed. After all, this is our base camp. If there is any movement, we must come and check. Doflamingo folded his hands on his chest, glanced at Mr. 3, and said firmly, I heard that you were ambushed by Kuzan and Fan Oka of the Blackbeard Pirates. I thought you would probably be carried back, but I didn't expect you to be unscathed. Ha ha ha, compared to being carried back, Doflamingo, I didn't expect you to care so much about me, so you ran over immediately. Mr. 3 laughed. Doflamingo laughed immediately. Ah, aren't you being a little sentimental? As a partner, such words really hurt people's hearts. Mr. 3 sighed with feigned grief. Although Moria next to him did not speak, if you observe carefully, it is not difficult to find that he, like Doflamingo, has a slight smile on his mouth after seeing Mr. 3 returning safely. Compared with Hancock and Crocodile, they haven't been in contact with Mr. 3 for a long time. Naturally, it is impossible to say that the bond is so strong that they live and die together. It's just that after the previous major incidents, as the military advisor of the Cross Union, Mr. 3 has been completely recognized by these two rebellious, old Jonghu. Without Mr. 3, their revenge and dream of joining the Cross Union would be difficult to realize. After some greetings, the people gathered on the beach, led by Buggy, slowly moved towards the base camp in the center of the island. But Mr. 3 and Hawkeye did not follow. They stood side by side on the edge of the beach, looking at the sea and sky in the distance. After Buggy and his party walked away, Hawkeye looked at Mr. 3 with sharp eyes, and asked first, then Mr. 3, now you can talk about it, you deliberately left me what you wanted to say. Mr. 3 raised his hand and pushed the goggles, and was not in a hurry to mention the recruitment, but first mentioned the surprise attack by Blackbeard. This time I fought against Kuzan. I got a lot of information about Blackbeard. Mihawk, you and Blackbeard used to be Shichibukai. How much do you know about this guy? Hearing this, although Hawkeye was quite surprised why it was such a topic, he didn't care too much. After bowing his head and thinking for a few seconds, he said in a deep voice, it's a guy who hides deeply. His body structure is completely different from that of ordinary people. It seems that he still has multiple personalities. Multiple personalities? Mr. 3 captured this important information. That's right. I'm not particularly clear about the specific reason, but what is certain is that the power he possesses is much stronger than it appears on the surface. Hawkeye's expression was serious. He has fought against the red-haired Shanks countless times, and even broke out a big duel that shocked even strong men like the white-bearded Golden Lion, and he knows each other's strength very well. And even the redhead who was evenly matched with him in this way would still be left with indelible scratches by the Blackbeard if he was not careless. It is conceivable how powerful Blackbeard's true strength is. Even if you say that, then you really have to proceed with caution. Mr. 3 sighed softly. As expected of the supervillain under IM, Blackbeard is really not that easy to deal with. Why? Have you made up your mind to attack Blackbeard? Hawkeye caught this information from his words. Avengers must be revenged, but the most basic quality of pirates, so. Mr. 3 put his hands behind his back, and a killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. As if responding to this aura, dense dark red lightning suddenly burst out from his body, and his domineering aura burst into full bloom. Before Hawkeye could understand what this meant, the dark red lightning was already highly concentrated, converging into a bright energy circle that slowly circulated. Mr. 3's aura of coercion has been raised several levels. This is not over yet, as Mr. 3 let out a low growl, under the shocking gaze of the eagle eyes, the red energy halo surrounding his body shattered like a rampage, directly tearing his skin and muscles, spilling sticky blood. Whoosh! In the next second, golden particles representing the Overlord color spewed out, intertwined and blended with the bright red blood, forming a more dazzling dark golden energy halo. The golden light shines, advancing layer by layer, bursting out endless shocks. Standing in the center of domineering raging, Mr. 3 is like a king who dominates the world, overwhelming the world. This is the final stage of the Overlord color burning, the life-sacrificing state that takes less than 1 minute to use. Sensing the rapidly dissipating arrogance and vitality in his body, Mr. 3 suppressed the almost tearing pain all over his body, forced Gra to push the goggles all over the floor, and then turned to look at Hawkeye beside him. Out of an instinctive reaction to the extremely dangerous aura, at this time Hawkeye had drawn out the black sword Yaoko behind his back and held it in front of him. It can be clearly seen that dense dark red lightning is jumping wildly on the pitch-black knife. Seeing Hawkeye's vigilance, Mr. 3, who had successfully pushed the goggles and pretended to be aggressive, took the initiative to remove Ba-Ran's life-sacrificing state. The phantom of the Eternal Wax Museum emerged behind him, and the wax figure that looked exactly like him jumped up from the candlestick, turning into white light and sinking into the body. After returning to life, Mr. 3 continued what he had just said, and said to Hawkeye with a smile on his face. "So, the world's #1 swordsman, Buggy and I need your help, join us." Before officially recruiting Hawkeye, it was Mr. 3's plan to liberate himself from his current strongest posture. After all, the opponent is the world's #1 swordsman with a high heart and arrogance. If he doesn't have the power to surprise and recognize him, how can he recruit and how can he talk about ideals? At the same time, using the life-saving hole card Eternal Wax Museum in front of Hawkeye, in addition to further demonstrating your ability, you can also make your recruitment behavior full of sincerity. It probably means that no matter whether you agree to recruit or not, I will regard you as a completely reliable companion. After all, Hawkeye is a powerful existence who can traverse the new world by himself, and does not need to rely on others to survive. Strategy and calculation will be superfluous in front of him. Therefore, compared to the previous Shichibukai, Mr. 3's strategy of recruiting Hawkeye is extremely simple and rude, that is absolute strength and full sincerity. Under this premise, it is totally worthwhile to waste the permission to use the Eternal Wax Museum once. "Mihawk, Buggy and I need your help, join us." Hawkeye stood there tall and straight, with the expression on his face as calm as ever. Mr. 3's words echoed in his ears, and after only thinking for a few seconds, he nodded slightly and said seriously, "I can agree to join the Cross Union, but..." Before the words could be uttered, a red light flashed across the pupils of the excited Mr. 3. After catching Hawkeye's follow-up conditions in advance, he was taken aback for a moment, and then stretched out his palm with a smile on his face. "There is no problem at all." Then, "Welcome to join us in advance, the world's #1 swordsman, Joracle Mihawk." Hawkeye was a little dazed by this miraculous operation, and said with a speechless smile, "It's just a simple condition. As for using the domineering look that can predict the future." In desperation, his gaze on Mr. 3 involuntarily flashed with surprise and surprise. When did this guy learn to predict the future? Although his heart was full of curiosity, Hawkeye didn't ask any questions, but stretched out his hand to hold Mr. 3 together. The mysterious ability that Mr. 3 showed just now is full of sincerity, and it seems a bit disrespectful for him to ask the other party's secret at this time. The world of pirates respects strength, and it is definitely not a good thing to get to know a strong man too much. "Haha, it's mainly because I'm thin-skinned and afraid of being rejected in person, so I predicted it in advance." Mr. 3 withdrew his palm, scratched his head and laughed. "You have cheated so many powerful people, even you who dare to plot with Black Beard and Red Dog. How dare you say such a thing?" Hawkeye glanced contemptuously at the stinky and shameless guy in front of him. For the sake of his aloof image, he still didn't express his thoughts in the end. "Actually, even if you hide that horrifying posture and weird recovery ability just now, I plan to join the Cross Union." Putting away the Black Knife Knight, the Eagle Eyes with his hands folded on his chest looked into the distance as the sunset gradually set on the sea level. Hearing what he said, Mr. 3 looked very surprised. "What? You mean, I didn't have to do anything just now, I just need to speak out, and you will agree?" "That's right." Hawkeye admitted generously. "Why don't you justify yourself? Otherwise it will make me look stupid." "What do you mean?" "No, I just want to know why, a man like you standing at the top of the world, shouldn't have a reason to join Buggy's command?" Even Mr. 3, who knows the characters in the original book, can't think of a reason at this time. Even the famous 4 Emperor pirates, such as Red Hair and White Beard, can't catch Hawkeye's eyes. Although the current Cross Union is developing rapidly, it's not enough for Hawkeye to take the initiative to join, right? With a serious expression in Eagle Eyes, he gave an explanation that was beyond expectations and within reason. "The reason is very simple, that is, I have a strong intuition that joining the Cross Union will allow me to break through the current shackles and become stronger." As a veteran, who witnessed the establishment and growth of the Cross Union with his own eyes, besides wanting to see how far Mr. Buggy and others can go, Hawkeye, with exceptionally keen perception, is also secretly watching the growth of the members of the Cross Guild. Needless to say, the strength of Mr. 3 has grown to incredible levels by leaps and bounds. The core personnel, including Buggy and Crocodile, have shown signs of increasing in strength and arrogance in a short period of time. This kind of sign is very subtle, and even they themselves don't pay much attention to it, but it is a completely different scene in the eagle eyes with a deep view of the overall situation. Whether it is Ayasha's fruit ability to go further, complete Weevil's malicious erasure ahead of schedule. It is Hancock who has learned the entanglement of the Overlord color and achieved a key breakthrough in physical skills. I even saw with my own eyes today, the rapid growth of everyone in Alvita. All of this made Hawkeye more firm in his intuition. Although I don't know the specific reason, if there is such a thing as luck in this world, it must belong to the cross union where Buggy and Mr. 3 belong. The trend of the times, in order to verify the thoughts in his heart and seize the opportunity to become stronger, which is very likely to be fleeting, Hawkeye naturally wants to officially join the cross union. Looking at Hawkeye's determined demeanor and tone, Mr. 3 couldn't help but feel deep admiration and emotion in his heart. As expected of the man named Eagle Eye by Oda, Mihawk's observation ability and intuition are simply not too strong. In fact, the phenomenon of joining the cross union can make you stronger can be easily detected by a slightly shrewd person, but there are very few people who can start from the subtleties and make quick and accurate judgments like Hawkeye and less. If they get along for a long enough time, wouldn't they even be aware of the existence of the system? The more Mr. 3 thought about it, the more startled he became, but obviously, now is not the time to think about these things. It's such a keen insight. To be honest, when I first discovered that Buggy has such a wonderful temperament, I was really taken aback. He came decisively to push the boat along the way, and pushed this kind of unclear thing to the great god Buggy who had countless auras. Doing this can not only confuse Hawkeye's judgment, but also strengthen Buggy's position as the president. After all, this guy is still a scumbag with no special abilities, so he really can't restrain Hawkeye. It really is Buggy. Hawkeye frowned slightly, showing some doubts. But no matter how you say it, Mr. 3's goal of confusing directions has been achieved. He continued the topic just now and asked, "So, you chose to join the cross union just to become stronger?" Hearing this, Hawkeye smiled heartily, and asked back, "The so-called pirates, aren't they just trying to find ways to maximize their own interests?" Ha ha ha, well said. Mr. 3 laughed heartily. This is the first time he has seen Hawkeye so frankly. From another perspective, Hawkeye has indeed regarded him as a partner of the pirates. The wax museum-like thing that appeared behind you just now is probably the ability of Wawa fruit after awakening. Recalling Mr. 3's blood-soaked golden stance, he hesitated again and again, and Hawkeye asked tentatively, "But the red light circle and the golden light curtain, if you guess correctly, are another usage of domineering look?" "That's right, I researched it by chance, and it's called Overlord color burning." Afterwards, Mr. 3 briefly explained to Hawkeye the general principle of Ba burning. It does work in theory, but the risks you need to bear are not as simple as you said. Hawkeye sighed with a complicated expression. As the world's #1 swordsman, a strong man whose strength is almost the same as that of the red-haired Shanks, he naturally also possesses and masters the Overlord color coil. Because of this, it is quite clear how dangerous this skill is. If you are not careful, you will end up exploding and dying. Reminiscent of the Wax Museum ability after the awakening of the Mr. 3 fruit, Hawkeye soon found a reasonable explanation for his doubts. Perhaps it is precisely because of the recovery of that terrifying state that Mr. 3 has more opportunities to try to develop a brand new Overlord color skill. With proper operation and my guidance from the side, it is not difficult to understand the initial stage of Ba Ran. Now that it has been mentioned to this extent, Mr. 3 will no longer keep it, although it is still a little bit reluctant. The current Hancock can indeed show it. Has the Pirate Empress learned it yet? Hawkeye's eyes narrowed slightly, feeling very surprised. He has only come into contact with this novel and fierce way of using domineering color today, and Hancock has already been far ahead on this road. If there is no accident, the Ba Ran developed by Mr. 3 will definitely become the standard equipment of another Emperor-level powerhouse besides the Overlord color winding. The sooner you master this power, you will be able to be one step ahead of others and climb to the top. Hawkeye never imagined that he just joined the cross union 1 second ago, and the next second, he would be able to enjoy this unexpected bonus. That's right, we are partners now. If you have any questions, just come to me. Mr. 3 patted his chest, and the upturned corners of his mouth revealed the pride and excitement in his heart. The one in front of him is the #1 swordsman in the pirate world, Hawkeye Mihawk. If he can ask him questions, he can brag about it for at least 2.5 years. Then please. Although Hawkeye saw through Mr. 3's smug face, he didn't really care. After all, in terms of Ba Ran, he does have a considerable gap in cognition. It's easy to say. Which of our two brothers is with whom? The smile on Mr. Three's face became more and more intense. The corner of Hawkeye's mouth twitched imperceptibly. He waved his cloak, and turned around silently towards the base camp. By the way, Mihawk, since we have already mentioned the question of asking for advice, if you have time, can you give me some advice on Ayasha's swordsmanship? After all, she is his own little fangirl, and Mr. Three still values Ayasha very much. The reason why he didn't mention it earlier was because he knew Hawkeye's personality. It is very difficult to ask him to teach swordsmanship, and he will leave behind unresolved favors. As for now, they are already partners in the same boat, so is there any reason not to pluck the wool? Hawkeye, who has always been afraid of trouble, frowned slightly. After thinking for a few seconds, he nodded and promised, no problem. He is the kind of character who either refuses or follows through seriously, so Mr. Three is no longer worried. Seeing that several business affairs were successfully completed, Mr. Three's heart fluttered again without any surprise. He raised his head and glanced at the stern-faced Hawkeye. After serious consideration, he coughed a few times before deciding to speak. There is one last thing. That's right. Ahem. According to the style of buggy pirates, new partners have to call me third brother, look. Hearing this, Hawkeye suddenly stopped advancing, raised his right hand and grabbed Hideaway behind him. Compared to this, I think it is more appropriate to use this world's #1 black knife to greet you. Eh? Wait. Don't be impulsive, Mihawk, your level A is incredible. Whoosh. The dark green slash soared into the sky, and its power was so powerful that it pierced directly through the clouds above Kale Bali. Violent movements erupted, and even Buggy and the others who arrived at the base camp were attracted. Hey, could it be that? The four of Alvida looked up at the pierced sky, and vaguely, they could see a screaming thin figure falling rapidly. Eagle-eyed Mihawk slash, did he attack the third brother? Going out to practice, the group of four who missed the recent Shisabukai recruitment scenes had panic and bewilderment written all over their faces. Buggy, Crocodile and others, who are all too familiar with Mr. Three's beating behavior, after a short period of stupefaction, the corners of their mouths turned up one after another, showing extremely excited smiles. They are quite aware of Mr. Three's purpose of leaving Hawkeye alone, and Mr. Three being knocked into the air at this time means the world's #1 swordsman has most likely accepted recruitment and has truly become a member of the Cross Union. When Mr. Three, whose coat on his chest was smashed, came back and personally confirmed Hawkeye's joining, the crowd headed by Buggy were extremely happy. Whether it is Crocator, Hancock, Doflamingo, or Mariah, these veteran Shichibukai are quite aware of the terrifying combat power possessed by Hawkeye. With the addition of this man, the Crusaders Union's strategic goal of bringing together the old and the new Shichibukai has completed a crucial closed loop. So far, Mr. Three, who can compete with the former Admiral Aokiji, the world's #1 swordsman Hawkeye Mihawk, plus Hancock who barely reached the realm of the four emperors, and the aging Pluto Rayleigh. Even excluding the President Buggy whose strength is a mystery, the number of Emperor-level powerhouses owned by the Cross Guild has reached an astonishing 4. It is the only true, 4 Emperors, pirate group in this era. The condition for Hawkeye to join the Cross Guild is very simple, that is, to have Buggy, the captain, issue a formal invitation to him to board the ship in the way of a pirate. After all, it is a traditional pirate who implements the way of the sword, is elegant and persistent, and this condition is taken for granted. At the same time, it is surprisingly simple. This is the fundamental reason why Mr. Three showed a momentary look of astonishment after detecting it in advance with the color of predicting the future. Soon, in Buggy's exciting announcement, the world's #1 swordsman, Joe Rachel Mihawk, successfully joined the Cross Union and became the 7th team and the captain of the surprise attack team. Although the superficial team number is behind Crocodileming and many others, but with Hawkeye's casual and indifferent personality, he naturally doesn't pay too much attention to this insignificant ranking. As a welcome ceremony for the addition of Hawkeye and the strong return of the Alvida Quartet, the lively pirate banquet began. Including the prisoners on the 6th floor of Advanced City, all the cadres of the Cross Union who are famous in the New World are basically all. Participating in this banquet can be regarded as a relatively relaxed meeting for cadres to get to know each other. And Mr. Three sat in the corner of the hall and checked the system task panel, not planning to join the banquet for the time being. Ayasha, who was dressed in black and wore a long knife on her waist, stood beside her as usual. The difference from the previous situation was that there was a sexy beauty in a pink battlesuit next to her. As early as when returning by boat, Mr. Three introduced Reiju's situation to Ayasha, and the two, who are not bad-hearted, quickly became acquainted. As Mr. Three's consciousness sank deep in his mind, a system panel full of fantasy colors appeared in front of his eyes. Successfully recruited the former Shisabukai Chao Lakal Mihawk, the current goal progress is 6 completed. Target reward. Fruit ability development capsule. Vegapunk mysterious technology box. 3-color domineering choose 1 to upgrade, teacher to be determined. Target evaluation. D. Unpretentious recruitment. Open the branch objective, Hawkeye's Fate Showdown. Hawkeye's Fated Showdown. Help Hawkeye to further his strength and successfully defeat his old enemy, the red-haired Shanks. Target reward. Swordsmanship cheats. Mr. 3 was about to complain about the target evaluation and the high difficulty of the side missions. The system panel in his field of vision changed slightly, and the information that had appeared twice before appeared. It has been detected that the progress of the main line goal has completed 6 items, and the overall strength of the buggy pirates fully meets the main line advancement requirements. Do you want to move forward the main line goal, Shisabukai recruitment, and change it to Sea Emperor battle? The change will change the existing reward mechanism. The timing of the first 2 appearances was very ingenious. One was the tense moment after the operation to advance the city, and the other was during the battle with the Blackbeard pirates on the Giant Pot Island. There is a certain degree of risk in entering the 4 emperors in advance. But now, Hawkeye, the top combat force, is already on their side, and the overall strength of the Cross Guild is almost higher than the apex of the current 4 emperor pirates. It is the best time to start the next stage and compete with the red hair black beard in the 4 emperor pirates for hegemony. Why is it the best time? The reason is simple. Counting Hancock, who has not yet stabilized and tyrannical, and the aged Rayleigh is a complete 4 emperors, today's Cross Guild has 3 emperors. In addition, Crocodile, Doflamingo, Weevil, the most powerful people below the imperial level, a staggering number of pirates with a bounty of over 100 million, as well as intricate underground forces, mercenary organizations, and so on. The overall scale of the Cross Guild at this stage, except for the Pirate Alliance, no pirate group can compete head-on, and it is a superpower second only to the Navy and the world government. Although the comprehensive strength of the Revolutionary Dragon is not weak, and there are many hidden strong players, it is still slightly inferior to the Cross Union in terms of top combat power. This super status can certainly make people feel at ease, but it is the same as the Rocks pirates who dominated the world many years ago, and the problems that follow will become quite serious. That is, the Cross Union, which seriously threatens the balance of power of all parties, is very likely to become the target of public criticism, and will be justly attacked by the Navy and pirates. The interests of One Piece world come first, and Mr. 3 is quite clear about the truth that a tree that is beautiful in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Even if the Red Hair Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates, who have a good relationship with the Cross Guild, don't make a move, what about the forces like the Blackbeard Pirates that have the Imperial rank and are close to the Imperial rank? Based on this trend, there are probably only 2 roads ahead for the Cross Trade Union. First, hide your own strength as much as possible, and develop enough to crush all the powerful. Second, to fight against the outside world, we must first secure the inside, sweep the pirate forces in the fastest time, and solve the potential danger that may become the enemy in advance. In peacetime, the first path is naturally the best choice, because there will be no fierce battles, and you can even pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger at the whole point. But in today's chaotic period of rebellion in various places and intensified conflicts among the 3 forces of the Navy, pirates, and Revolutionary Army, it is really too difficult. Therefore, in front of Mr. 3, there is naturally the second path left, frontal toughness. The current stage of the Crusaders' Union, which is powerful, but not easily beaten by gangs, is the so-called best period. Thinking of this, Mr. 3 no longer hesitated, and expressed his thoughts to the system in his heart, confirmed to start the Sea Emperor battle. Main line goal successfully changed, current main line, 4 emperors fighting for hegemony. Successfully defeat or conquer any of the new and old 4 emperor pirates, and gradually push the buggy pirates, Cross Guild, to the top of the pirates, and rule the world. Target reward 3. Fruit ability development capsule 1. Third Brothers Domineering Lecture 1. Red Road Sign History Text, Phantom Beast Devil Fruit. Note 1. Choose 1 member of the Cross Union to teach actual combat. To increase its 3-color domineering level, choose 1. According to the quality of teaching, you can get an equal or super double domineering boost. Accompanied goal of the main line, form a large fleet. Strong support is the guarantee for the stability and strength of the pirate group, looking for potential pirate groups and taking them under their command to form a large ship group. Target reward. According to the target pirate group, improve the comprehensive strength of core members, dominant, fruit ability, physical skills. Fuck. When he saw the rewards on the system panel, Mr. 3 couldn't help but let out a low voice. Apart from rewards that are far more lucrative than the Shisabukai recruitment missions, the biggest change is undoubtedly the domineering lecture hall. As a student in the last stage, he has grown by leaps and bounds under the good teachers such as Rayleigh, Katakori, and Kaido. And this stage is actually reversed. Let him teach as a teacher? No wonder the system prompts repeatedly stated that the existing reward mechanism will be changed. This is more than just a change, just reverse the 2 levels, okay? But, the corners of Mr. 3's mouth could not help but rise slightly, looking forward to his next teaching class. The doubling of domineering boost doesn't really matter. The main thing is that he finally has a good reason to teach Crocodile and Doflamingo a good lesson. Hey. Thinking of Crocodile and Doflamingo being beaten up, coughing, after some friendly education, their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen, and at the same time they were shocked by their own domineering and ignorant state, Mr. 3 couldn't help but let out a series of sinister smiles. The almost substantive strong malice instantly attracted Ayasha's attention, and her beautiful eyes blinked and turned into shining stars. As expected of the third brother, even the malice that comes out of him is so pure and clean. Third brother, be careful. Ayasha was immersed in Mr. 3's strong and pure malice. Suddenly, as if sensing some kind of danger, she quickly stepped out to block Mr. 3. With a click, a piece of banana peel was accurately covered on her head. Looking up, I saw the center of the banquet, where Buggy and Alvida's group of 4 were standing on the dining table, holding banana peels, cake cream, fish bones and other throwing objects ready to go. Damn it. I didn't expect Lao Su's full blow to be resolved in this way, that damned malicious brat. Buggy, who was wearing a big red robe, had dark eyes, picked up the champagne cork on the dining table and pressed it in his palm, aimed at Mr. 3 in the corner and pushed it vigorously. Call out. The champagne cork sprayed like a cannonball, bypassing Ayasha and was about to hit Mr. 3. Reiju flicked the pink cloak of the battlesuit to block it. Asshole. Seeing the 2 beauties with completely different styles blocking Mr. 3, Buggy clenched his fists and gritted his teeth angrily. I don't know if it was because of the failure of the sneak attack, or because of other reasons. Brothers, while this guy 3 is deep in thought, don't show mercy and just do it to me. Buggy turned around and waved to Alvida and the others beside him. Pirates' banquets, especially those of the clown Buggy pirates, naturally had to be crazy and fun. Even if Mr. 3 is the chief of the general staff now, don't think about being alone. Learn. Alvida and the others nodded slightly, took a step forward, raised their arms and threw butter fish bones at the 3 of Mr. 3. At this time, Mr. 3 just completed the next action plan and retreated from the state of thinking. Responding quickly, he raised his hand and threw out the wax, perfectly intercepting all kinds of food in midair. Buggy, it's not a good habit to waste food. Mr. 3 stood up slowly, moved his knuckles a few times to prepare for his hands. Third brother, use this. Ayasha brought a durian full of hard thorns from nowhere, and a dark look flashed in the depths of her pretty eyes. Very well. Let the red nose on the opposite side see how powerful we are. Mr. 3 took the durian from Ayasha's hand, covered it with a black armored domineering color, and threw it violently. The pitch black durian galloped through the air, whizzing past Buggy's face. Boom. The violent impact directly hit the wall of the base camp, knocking out a hole the size of a head. After all, many big pirates under the cadres participated in this banquet. If Buggy is made to embarrass himself in public like this, it will have some impact. However, Mr. 3's simple concerns, in the eyes of those pirate boys with bounties of over $1 million, it is a different picture. What's going on? At such a short distance, the third brother's attack actually missed. No, take a closer look at Mr. Buggy. From the beginning to the end, he just stood there motionless. So is this any different from third brother's miss attack? Bastard. It must be different. The person who spoke had personally witnessed the famous scene where Buggy bombarded the Tianlong people, and he firmly believed in Buggy's power from the bottom of his heart. After swallowing saliva with a serious expression, he slowly expressed his judgment. Third brother has covered the high-level armed domineering color in that durian, so how can he not use the corresponding knowledge-colored domineering? In other words, the third brother actually predicted Lord Buggy's evasion trajectory through his knowledge, and Lord Buggy predicted the third brother's prediction with a stronger knowledge, so he stood in the original position. Don't move. Hearing this, Many younger brothers suddenly realized, their eyes widened in shock. It's scary. It's just a joke at the banquet, and the fight between those two is already so exciting. Is this Lord Buggy with king-level combat power and the third brother with emperor-level combat power? It is a great honor to be able to follow these two men. As soon as these words came out, not to mention Crocodile, Doflamingo, and others dumbfounded, even the person involved, Buggy, just sucked back the snot coming out of his nostrils, with a dazed expression on his face. Where did Lao Tzu's strength come from, and was passed down as king class by younger brothers? Just outrageous. In the final analysis, it is because of the recent performance of the Emperor's deputy Mr. Point 3 that is too impressive. The son is as precious as his father, and Buggy, who is the captain, is naturally supplemented by crazy brains. Aha, ahahaha, as expected, they are all guys who were famous in this sea before, and this level of confrontation was actually understood by you. After reacting, Buggy raised his head and chest, and a smug smile bloomed on his face covered with clown makeup. The corners of the mouths of Alvida and the others, who knew this stuff well, were speechless. At the same time, they couldn't help but feel a burst of relaxation after having undergone hell-level cultivation. Sure enough, such an environment of lying down is still suitable for them. It didn't take long for Buggy to be arrogant, and with a poof, a piece of cream cake was smeared on his face. Mr. 3 really can't understand this guy's appearance, after predicting the future's arrogance and domineering. After making sure in advance that doing so will not arouse the doubts of the younger brothers, he makes a decisive attack. Sure enough, this very ordinary action caused the little pirates to make up their minds again. And Buggy, who was attacked, didn't show mercy anymore. He greeted the Alvida quartet and rushed over. Mr. 3 took Ayasarejo to fight back, and the whole banquet suddenly became chaotic. In another corner, and Hawkeye sat face to face, and there were 2 jugs of fine wine on the small table in front of them. It's really embarrassing. They are already at the level of the 4 emperors, and they are as boring as a little kid. The cigar in S' mouth was burning slowly, his eyes rolled, and he glanced at Buggy and Mr. 3 who were getting along with the younger brothers. His words were full of disdain. I don't care about the image, and make a scene without restraint. Perhaps, this is the charm of Buggy and Mr. 3 that can attract so many powerful people? Hawkeye shook the red wine glass in his hand, expressing different understandings. Think about it carefully, the legendary One Piece Roger pirates also have this style of making trouble as they want. At the end of the day, that guy was just lucky. Crocodile was quite disdainful, but he didn't refute Hawkeye's judgment. Just at this time, in the center of the chaotic banquet, a tomato was thrown by someone, and it flew straight to Hawkeye. Hawkeye, who possesses top-notch knowledge, naturally wouldn't get caught so easily. He casually raised the crossknife on his chest and blocked it in front of him. The tomato hit the handle of the knife, and then bounced out, flying straight towards on the opposite side. The incident happened suddenly, and Crocodile, who was less domineering and knowledgeable, had just reacted when the bright red tomato exploded on his domineering and handsome face. Tick. Tock. The viscous red juice fell to the ground drop by drop, just like the corners of Crocodile's twitching mouth at this time, very rhythmic. The atmosphere instantly became quiet. A few seconds later, Crocodile, whose face was extremely gloomy, stood up slowly, and the miniature sandstorm in his palm frantically condensed. You bastards, it's almost okay, let me just let it go. Boom. The gravel flew, and the dining table in the banquet center was blown away. Hawkeye, who was sitting on the spot, raised his legs and looked at Crocodile who was walking slowly to the center of the banquet, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. From this point of view, you guys don't seem to be much different from them. As night fell, Mr. 3, who returned to the room, decisively used the domineering lecture reward obtained by recruiting Hawkeye this time. After several times of strengthening, his current 3-color domineering is quite mature, and he is only one step away from the peak. Among such high-level upgrade options, the most cost-effective one is undoubtedly the relatively rare domineering color domineering. After all, the opponents to face next are all-powerful Sea Emperors. A higher-level domineering usage than the Overlord color entanglement is really full of expectations. Amid Mr. 3's excitement and curiosity, the system's notification sound came from the depths of his mind. Overlord color domineering lecture was successfully used, this time the teacher is the red-haired Shanks. Same as the previous upgrades, the surrounding environment began to change. A thick fog spread, and a magnificent pirate ship appeared in front of Mr. 3's eyes. It is the Red Foss of the Red Hair Pirates. On the bow of the pirate ship, the red-haired Shanks, Beckman, Jesus BU and other cadres stood proudly. The powerful aura emanating from it became one piece, even the sky was shaken, and billowing black clouds descended. The newly rising Sea King, let our red-haired pirates test it, how courageous you are. The leader Shanks held the griffin at his waist with one hand, and the moment he drew out his saber, dense dark red lightning mixed with golden particles burst out, and the domineering arrogance was rampant. Immediately afterwards, the cadres of the Red Group also showed their weapons. This fucking dog system. I have no chance of winning against Shanks by myself now, and even got the whole red-haired pirates? Looking at the oppressive luxury lineup ahead, Mr. 3 cursed on the spot. It's the same as the domineering lecture where he faced Kaido's mother and was tortured to death. If there is no accident, he will have to complete his studies, again this time in various fancy beatings. But, Mr. 3, who had broken the defense, quickly regained his composure, with a fighting-like smile on his lips. The wings of freedom on the back are fully unfolded, and the domineering arrogance on the body is burning, condensing into a golden light curtain in the form of sacrificing one's life. Above the head, the phantom of the Eternal Wax Museum slowly emerged, and the wax figures that recovered their physical strength kept falling. In the virtual dimension of this domineering lecture hall, he can fully unleash his ultimate power and fight with all his might. The high-intensity continuous confrontation made the passage of time extremely slow, and the battle between the two sides lasted for a week. When Mr. 3 exited the domineering lecture hall, about 10 minutes had passed in the real world. The red-haired teacher's domineering lecture is completed. A good teacher can help you avoid detours, surpass yourself and become stronger. Facing your domineering and strongest posture, the red-haired pirates headed by red-haired Shanks have given you all their money. In countless attacks that shook the world, your physique has been tempered, and the three-color domineering has been obtained. Ascension, domineering and domineering across a class. Current domineering stage. Ultimate, proficient in using domineering, and initially grasping physical destruction and knowledge killing. Substantial damage. The ordinary domineering aura released outside can cause substantial damage to the surrounding people and things, and has the effect of weakly suppressing the ability of devil fruits. Knowledge killing. Suppress the target with monster-like fierce aura, making it impossible to concentrate their mental consciousness, and invalidating the knowledge-colored arrogance that predicts the future. Current fruit ability breakthrough progress, 1/3. Whether it's physical destruction or knowledge killing, Mr. 3 has already had a profound personal experience in the battle with the red-haired pirates. In addition, these two abilities have already been understood at the beginning of his time travel, so they don't feel strange. The role of the former is more of pretentiousness. Just imagine, when you step on the stage, you can make the surrounding ground crack and the objects shatter. How cool would that be? And those who have substantially improved their own combat power are naturally killed by knowledge. What Mr. 3 will face afterward is basically the Emperor of the Sea who can foresee the short future. With this kind of power, he will be able to seize the opportunity in the battle and gradually accumulate advantages. Thinking of this, Mr. 3 recalled the system panel in the back of his mind, and checked the improvement brought about by this domineering lecture. The strongest Emperor subsystem, omitted. Mr. 3, who felt his strength improved, lay down on the bed contentedly, and fell asleep comfortably. In the early morning of the next day, before today's latest news was released, the Cross Union learned the heavy news of the comeback of the Four Emperors Kaido and the Four Emperors Ant through the newspaper Morgan's early revelations. Soon, the core cadres of the Cross Union gathered in the conference room, and Hawkeye, Hancock, Crocodile and others were all present. That's the way it is. Among the remaining pirate forces, except for the pirate group of the Four Emperors, there are actually not many that we can recruit. As the Chief of Staff, Mr. 3 articulated the fatal problem he had considered yesterday. And after Hawkeye joined, the size of the Cross Guild is almost no weaker than that of the Rocks pirates for decades. Sooner or later, it will provoke a joint attack from many forces, so. Instead of sitting still, I think we should take the initiative to conquer powerful enemies like the Four Emperors and strengthen ourselves. Even Crocodile and others, who have been in the world of One Piece for many years, couldn't help being secretly shocked when they heard Mr. 3's sharp analysis and bold ideas. The continuous attraction of strong men of the same level really made them feel unprecedentedly confident, and they even had some hope for the illusory goal of overthrowing the rule of the Tianlong people. The few words of Mr. 3 successfully shattered their self-confidence and gave them a strong sense of crisis. It's not that people like Eagle Eye Crocodile didn't expect the possibility of being besieged, It's just that the idea that the strong are respected in the pirate world and that the pirate navy is incompatible has been deeply ingrained in their subconscious. Especially during this period of time, the intensified confrontation and friction of the Navy pirates made them ignore this terrible possibility. It is true that being too powerful will lead to destruction, but it is definitely not a simple matter to quickly defeat the four emperors who have occupied the New World for many years. Hawkeye folded his hands on the conference table, expressing his concerns. With the current overall strength of the Cross Union, it is not particularly difficult to defeat a single four emperors team. But the problem is the chain reaction that will be triggered during or after they defeat a certain four emperors. This is like the delicate balance that exists between the Navy headquarters and the four emperors. An all-out Navy can easily destroy one of the four emperors' pirate groups, but once it does so, it will arouse the vigilance of the other four emperors, and even an alliance confrontation. The end result can only be a lose-lose situation. This is true even for a powerful naval overlord, let alone the Cross Union, which is currently under the watchful eye of the world government. All the people present were shrewd people, Weevil, and they quickly figured out the reason, and all of them turned their attention to Mr. 3. I understand your concerns, so we need to have precise and detailed planning for the order and attitude of the four emperors. Mr. 3 calmly took the black tea from Ayasha's hand, took a sip, and said in a deep voice, "It just so happens that among the 36 strategies I have mastered, there is a strategy for this situation." 36 count. Hearing this all too familiar name, except for Moria and Reiju who joined last, who were a little confused, everyone including Buggy's eyes lit up, and they straightened their backs and regained their energy. Properly look like a good student who studies hard and makes progress every day. It's hard to imagine that this group of people would be those brutal, vicious and famous former Kibukai. It can be summed up in 4 words, far and near attack. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, Mr. 3 put down the exquisite teacup in his hand, coughed lightly, and explained. It probably means to win over forces that are far away and have a good relationship, conquer forces that are close and have a bad relationship, and achieve an ideal state of orderly advance and retreat, and strong offense and defense. Speaking of this, Mr. 3 turned his head to look at Buggy, and asked, "President Buggy, who is the 4 emperors who have a bad relationship with us?" The natural question, Buggy answered without thinking. "That must be the Blackbeard pirates." Mr. 3 asked again, "Which is the 4 emperors' force that is closer to our headquarters?" Neither the Straw Hats nor the Redheads have a fixed base, the Big Moms are allies, and the Kaidos are no longer in Wano, so. Buggy gritted his beard and smiled fiercely, "Blackbeard pirates. Since President Buggy has said so, everyone, I believe our goal is already clear." Mr. 3's words instantly ignited the emotions of the strong people in the audience. "While making friends with the Straw Hats, the Redheads, and the Big Moms, we will officially declare war on the Blackbeard pirates." When he learned about the mystery of Blackbeard from Aokiji, Mr. 3's initial thought was to wait for the best opportunity. However, Hawkeye's unexpected recruitment success not only established the lineup of the 4 emperors of the Cross Union, but also allowed his own strength to be gradually improved through the domineering lecture hall. Therefore, Mr. 3 acted decisively and decided to wipe out the biggest hidden danger of Blackbeard as soon as possible before the Navy headquarters and even the world government realized the seriousness of the problem. Just when Mr. 3 was about to tell the detailed action about the crusade against the Blackbeard pirates, a monster, far beyond his expectations appeared. It's not good, President Buggy, third brother. A strong man with extremely strong strength broke through the offshore defense line, and is rushing towards Kale Bali Island at an extremely fast speed. A little pirate boy hurried into the meeting room, his vicious face was full of horror. Everyone in the conference room was shocked. With the prestige, reputation and combat power of the Cross Union now, there are still people who are so desperate and dare to offend like this. Without waiting for Mr. 3 to ask the specific reason, there was a loud boom, and the terrible impact erupted like a meteorite falling, shaking the whole island violently. The sky is full of dust, and the terrifying man who is as vicious as a ghost has arrived in Kale Bali. Boom. The muscular Douglas Barrett stood in the deep pit formed by the violent impact, and walked leisurely towards the circus building where Mr. 3 and the others were located. The security force stationed at Kale Bali Island took the lead in attacking, and the attacking team composed of pirates with an average bounty of over 100 million swarmed up, and the first battle on the island started. As the Devil's Descendant on Roger's ship, the young Barrett's fighting power was equal to that of Raleigh at that time. After these years of growth and the ability to awaken fruit, his strength has improved to a higher level, and he is at its peak. Although the guards of the Cross Union were strong, they still didn't have much resistance in front of such monsters. In just a few rounds, these powerhouses with a bounty of over 100 million lay in a mess in the deep pit, bloodied and passed out. With powerful domineering and physical skills, Barrett pushed all the way, and soon passed through the forest area outside Kale Bali, and was about to reach the central circus building. Whoosh! Suddenly, a violent hurricane blew ahead of Barrett. Accompanied by the yellow sand all over the sky, a sand knife made of condensed gravel whizzed towards Barrett's head. Barrett stood still, his devil-like pupils turned slightly, and he raised his palm covered with advanced armed colors to grab the sharp sand knife. Boom! He squeezed it a little harder, and the sand knife immediately shattered and turned into loose yellow sand again. Whoosh whoosh! In the distance, a sandstorm that covered the sky and the sun broke out, and the gray coat was blowing in the wind. Whose lower body kept elementalized and melted into the sandstorm, flew quickly, with the golden hook in his hand shining, and attacked Barrett. The corner of Barrett's mouth raised a wanton smile, and he swung his huge pitch-black fist, colliding with the golden hook. Under the pouring of domineering power, was unexpectedly shattered into fine dust. The yellow sand fluttered and condensed on the opposite side of Barrett, turning into again. I didn't expect that the first person to break into our cross union would be you, Douglas Barrett. Unharmed, Crocodile was smoking a cigar and staring at Barrett with serious eyes. When Barrett left the Roger Pirates to roam the New World as a rookie, the two of them had a brief confrontation, which ended in a tie. At that time, Crocodile was high-spirited and a strong man who dared to challenge the peak Whitebeard. It's a pity that after being immersed in Alabasta for many years, I didn't get any mental and physical training, which led to a serious decline in my own strength. It wasn't until I returned to the New World in the past 2 years that I recovered by leaps and bounds. So the current him is not yet the opponent of Barrett, who has been training for many years. What's more, the other party has a domineering look. Saxi doesn't care about Da. Barrett also recognized, a few years ago, I heard that you became the emperor of a certain kingdom. I didn't expect that you are now stirring up trouble in the New World. The strong belong to this sea after all. Crocodile glanced at Barrett, and said casually, it's your body, which has been in prison for more than 10 years, probably already rusted? After all, they were old rivals many years ago. As soon as the two sides met, they revealed each other's old background. The Barrett set here has developed insignificantly since Blackbeard escaped from prison 2 years ago. He has not experienced the theatrical version of the incident. Otherwise, the previous plot of Advanced City should be patched, and there is also a need to find the Blackbeard alliance. The reason for this part is barely reasonable. Okay. I didn't come here looking for you. Barrett folded his hands on his chest, showing no signs of continuing to fight with Crocodile. I heard that the red-nosed kid inherited Roger's will decades ago and became a strong man comparable to Locke's in this era. Speaking of this, Barrett's pupils showed an uncontrollable frenzy. Your cross-union president, Buggy the Clown, is the goal of my trip. Buggy, who has conquered many Shichibukai with his own charm, is one of the men who has been challenging the strongest him all his life and wants to defeat him completely. While the two were talking, members of the Crusaders Union with powerful auras appeared one after another around them, encircling Barrett and trapping him in the center. Although there are not many of them, they are the strongest group of people under Captain Fan, Little Cadres, with an average reward of more than 500 million. Barrett naturally discovered the existence of this group of people, but there was still a flamboyant smile on the corner of his mouth, without showing the slightest panic. Ahahaha, I really didn't expect, Barrett, that we would meet under such circumstances. After a burst of public laughter, Buggy, dressed in a big red robe, walked slowly to Crocodile and appeared in front of Barrett. After learning that the enemy who made a big fuss in Kale Bali this time was Barrett, who was as strong as a monster, Buggy, who had always been heartwarming, was really taken aback. It can be said that he grew up watching Barrett's strength, and instinctively felt a little fear in his heart. Fortunately, this guy's acting skills are in place, and he pretends to be calm, so that he won't make a fool of himself in front of many younger brothers. I didn't expect that the two brats back then have grown to this level now. Barrett stared closely at Buggy. Judging from his aura, the extremely weak Buggy can't compare with Mr. 3, Hawkeye, Hancock and others beside him. But with the presence of the red-haired Shanks as a comparison, coupled with many recent major events, Barrett's expression is extremely dignified. How could this brat hide his aura so tightly? Stop talking nonsense, forcefully break through the line of defense, kill and wound so many younger brothers. Buggy remained motionless among Hawkeye, Hancock and the others, and a stern look appeared on the clown's face. Barrett, Even if you were once on the same boat, don't expect me to let you go easily." Hearing this, Barrett spread his arms indifferently, and jokingly said, "Then let's try it out." The moment the words fell, his eyes turned scarlet like a devil. Accompanied by the scene of hell where the sky and the earth suddenly faded, the extremely fierce and domineering arrogance exploded. The red shock formed by the dark red lightning swept across the entire Kale Bali Island, shaking the spiritual will of everyone present. However, what Barrett never expected was that within the range of his domineering aura, not only the group of Shisebukai-level powerhouses standing in front of him remained motionless. Even the little brother, who surrounded him forcefully resisted the impact of this wave of breath. Those with a strong physique, either sitting on the spot and raising their legs, or leaning under a big tree to whistle and remove earwax, fully demonstrated the arrogance of the Pakistani group. The president, Buggy, is going to be the man who rules the world as the Pirate King. How can they be afraid of Barrett, the heir of the devil? Audience. No one fell to the ground. Everyone just stood there, looking eagerly at Barrett, who was constantly releasing his momentum. The corners of Barrett's mouth twitched, and a few drops of cold sweat oozed from his forehead. While lamenting that there are so many strong people in the Cross Union, it is the first time that I feel that my domineering look is so low end. He couldn't hold on any longer, silently withdrew his domineering aura. The smile on his face had already froze. Swoosh, the sea breeze blows gently, blowing the fallen leaves all over the ground, bringing a subtle embarrassment. Taking advantage of the messy gap in Barrett's wind, Mr. Three's eyes narrowed slightly, and he began to analyze the purpose of the other party's rash intrusion into Kale Bali this time. This is the territory of the 4 Emperor Pirates. Although Barrett is the type of reckless person who refuses to accept, he is definitely not a fool with no brains. Since he dared to come here alone, there must be other people behind him to support him. Taking it seriously, this force hiding in the dark is most likely waiting for an opportunity in the open sea at this time, waiting for Barrett to launch an attack after he makes a big fuss in Bali. Is it the Blackbeard pirates who have a grudge against the Cross Guild? Or the remnants of the original Rogers and Locke's regiments? Or a less likely world government? After all, Bali is the stronghold of the Cross Guild. If a head-on battle broke out with a strong man like Barrett who could change the terrain of the entire island would probably cease to exist. So, after thinking briefly, Mr. Three put away his insidious plan to suddenly attack Barrett, wanting to see what the other party was going to do. Damn it, if you don't plan to attack, then don't blame me for attacking first. The atmosphere of silence caused Barrett to suffer a lot. He couldn't stand the embarrassment, so he stepped forward and crushed the ground under his feet. It's just a guy who has long been forgotten, don't be self-righteous over there. Seeing that Barrett, who was arched, was about to launch an attack, on the side of the Crusaders' Union, a long, white and beautiful leg stepped out. Hancock, who was wearing a black and white robe, brushed aside the hair that fell on his cheeks casually. His domineering look bloomed without bursting out, and gradually converged on the surface of his body, forming dark red arcs that jumped back and forth. Having mastered the initial stage of Overlord like burning, she has long wanted to try her own combat power through a close battle. And Douglas Barrett, who suddenly appeared in front of him, is obviously a very good test subject. Under the blessing of Ba Ran, Hancock's strength reached the peak of his physical limit, and he maintained it at all times. Whoosh! The long legs passed by in a flash, and in the next moment, there was only a loud boom. Hancock had already collided with the powerful Barrett, and a violent energy storm erupted. You bastard, is the Pirate Empress, Boa Hancock? Although Barrett is a veritable combat madman, he has been pursuing the ultimate strength all his life, and he doesn't care about beauty. But when he saw Hancock's alluring face at such a close distance, he still couldn't help being stunned. Hancock, who is surrounded by dark red lightning and has a monster-like aura, is undoubtedly full of unparalleled charm for him who advocates strength. The jet black high heels resisted the jet black heavy punch, and now Hancock wanted to know the limits of his physical skills, so he didn't plan to use the ability of the sweet fruit. After all, there are Mr. 3, Hawkeye Mihawk and others behind her, so there is no need to worry about the serious consequences of this trusteeship. This is the sense of security brought to her by a partner who can entrust her life. Thoughts are fleeting. As the collision of domineering and domineering intensified, the eyes of the two who had a general understanding of each other's combat power were fixed, and they both gave their best without reservation. Sizzle. An invisible air barrier was slowly formed, separating the direct contact between the high heels and the heavy punch. The dazzling golden particles flow, representing the world's most domineering forces colliding with each other, bursting out more dense and terrifying dark red lightning. At this moment, the two people who were evenly matched used the Overlord color twine at the same time. The unimaginably violent impact spread in all directions, trees were smashed, and the ground was cracked. Even the beach in the distance caused ripples visible to the naked eye. Every day, the sky is cracked. Headed by the Alvida group of 4, the surrounding small pirate cadres have noticed the crack in the sky floating above their heads, which looks like a doomsday scene. Almost at the same time, everyone showed quite synchronized expressions. She was so shocked that the bloodshot eyeballs jumped out of their sockets, her jaw fell to the ground, and her exposed tongue kept churning like sea waves. HMPH, what a group of guys who have never seen the world. Buggy, who was standing among the group of people, showed extremely shameless eyes, and said calmly, "The collision of the Overlord color will cause the sky to crack, and it is the most basic common sense to want to be under Lao Su's hands, so I will remember it well. Already." Hearing this, the small cadres of the pirates immediately cast admiring and envious eyes, and shouted in unison, as expected of President Buggy. This time, Buggy wasn't actually putting on airs. When following the Pirate King Roger to fight the world, I don't know how many times I have seen similar scenes, and it is really difficult to make waves deep in my heart. Well, the resume from a big company has such a significant advantage. Just as everyone marveled at the cracked sky, in the center of the battlefield in the distance, the fierce battle between Hancock and Barrett officially started. Both of them are masters of physical skills. Without using their respective fruit abilities, they punch to the flesh, legs are windy, and the physical skills of close combat are urged to the extreme. The sound of collisions enough to set off the air turbulence came one after another, and in an instant, half of the forest in Kale Bali was completely destroyed in the aftermath of the confrontation between the two, turning into a mess of ruins. Since Hancock has not yet fully mastered the Overlord color burning skill, the consumption of domineering will inevitably speed up. So soon, the combat genius Barrett seized the opportunity, and directly sent a heavy punch to blow her weakened into the air. Standing behind watching the show, Mr. 3 had quick eyes and quick hands, and raised his arms to release an overwhelming amount of soft wax. The wax liquid evolved into a giant candle hand in midair, firmly catching Hancock, who was flying upside down. The extra action is just a momentary carelessness. Standing back on the ground again, Hancock glanced back at Mr. 3, his sharp eyes exuding a rather displeased expression. It can be clearly seen that although she was suppressed in this battle, there were no obvious injuries on her body. Moreover, she hasn't used the rather unsolvable devil fruit ability. This impact is definitely not important to you, but if you just let it go, our base camp should be rebuilt. Mr. 3, who knew Hancock's temper well, smiled and pointed to the circus building behind him. Hancock snorted coldly, although he was still a little upset, he still walked down the steps given by Mr. 3. Her goal of this shot has been achieved, and there is no need to continue fighting with Barrett. With such combat power, the Pirate Empress is worthy of her name. Barrett, whose muscles swelled all over, walked slowly from the forest ruins. After being briefly surprised by Hancock's combat power, he still set his sights on Buggy. As the president of the new Four Emperors Cross Association, Buggy, your ability is not just hiding behind women, is it? Hearing such a humiliating question, Buggy was furious at that moment, and stared straight at Barrett's ghostly pupils with wide eyes without any fear. Barrett, I don't agree with what you said at all. I saw Buggy, who was wearing a big red robe, taking a step forward with a fierce expression, with a turbulent aura. Are you going to make a move? Barrett's muscles are tense, and the three-color arrogance is in full bloom, ready to face this new era of Locus. However, just when he was raising his state to the peak, Buggy's words almost choked him out of internal injuries. I will not only hide behind women, but also hide behind men. Buggy turned around slowly, and calmly patted Hawkeye's shoulder beside him. Mihawk, next, I'll leave it to you. President Buggy, you. The little pirates froze in place with stiff expressions. They were looking forward to the strength of Chairman Buggy, and they thought they could finally see his heroic figure in battle. They never expected that man, their god, would actually say the words, hide behind others. Taking a small step back, Buggy, who was already hiding behind Hawkeye, suddenly realized that something was wrong, and cold sweat continued to ooze from his forehead. The inner activities are even more exciting. If you want to die or die, if you knew it, you wouldn't be so complacent, and you even forgot the existence of these guys. Just when Buggy was about to lose his hold, the younger brother with a gloomy face finally raised his head violently. President Buggy, how arrogant this is. The other party is the legendary great pirate Douglas Barrett, the most ferocious fugitive in the history of Push City. President Buggy actually looks down on such an opponent. Bastard, isn't this inevitable? Our President Buggy is the target, but the rank of Admiral of the One Piece King, any cat or dog can let him take action, it is too low of status. Think carefully about what Chairman Buggy said just now, not only hide behind women, but also hide behind men. This is clearly the absolute trust and dependence on partners. Damn it, if only I could be relied on by Mr. Buggy like this. Then you can replace Hawkeye now and give Barrett 2 knives. Oh, by the way, I suddenly remembered that the clothes to hang yesterday have not been collected. Hearing that the younger brothers were so obsessed and fanatical about him, Buggy stood still and blinked cutely. The slightly trembling sexy eyelashes interpret his rather confused inner activities at this moment. Mihawk rolled his eyes and noticed the strangeness on Buggy's face, but he didn't say much, but walked forward slowly, and walked up to the angry Barrett. As early as when he decided to join the Cross Union, he, who has always been aloof and unruly, was ready, and he would not resist Buggy's instructions as the captain. Aside from the fact that there are still a group of small cadres around who are powerful, but don't seem to be very smart, this is also his first battle after joining. Therefore, he will not hold back. The pitch-black cross sword was slowly drawn out, and the black light flowed and covered the blade, bursting out a palpitating dark red lightning. Be careful, Douglas Barrett. Completely different from Barrett's fierce and domineering aura, Hawkeye holding the black sword Yeto looked calm, and the black cloak fluttered slowly on his back, and he couldn't feel the domineering aura at all. However, the sense of oppression he brought to Barrett was as heavy as a mountain. The audience fell into silence immediately, including Barrett who was the enemy. Everyone breathed rapidly and stared intently at Hawkeye, for fear that they might miss the world's #1 in an instant. Mr. 3 stood on the spot with his arms folded, also showing great interest in Hawkeye's power. Undoubtedly, as the ultimate goal of Soren's lifelong pursuit, Hawkeye naturally has the dominance of a king. But the strange thing is that the deep black light circulating on Hideaway is very different from the domineering golden particles. It is not so much a different kind of domineering, but more like the product of the combination of the ultimate armed domineering and domineering. All in all, to be able to appreciate the slash of the world's #1 swordsman at such a close distance, he can be regarded as #1 among sea fans. Eagle-eyed Mihawk, although I really want to say that Bastard Buggy is a complete coward, but if you are the opponent, it's not bad. Barrett exerted his strength suddenly, forcibly bursting the black military uniform on his body, revealing his muscular muscles full of strength. Even in the current situation, with a full smile, he seems to have no intention of using the ability of the combined fruit, and wants to use his own arrogance to fight against Hawkeye. The next second, Hawkeye, who was holding a knife in one hand, opened his posture, raised the black knife Yeto aimed at the tense Barrett, and slowly swung it down through the air. Not too much nonsense, not too many bells and whistles. It was like ordinary people fighting and slashing with knives, but in an instant, unparalleled terrifying power erupted. Hum. The black gold slashed sword into the sky, bringing out bursts of sonic booms, as if to tear this space apart, stopping the flow of time and eclipsing the world. Just when Hawkeye was carrying out his style of, if you can do it, you don't have many BBS, and maintained a handsome posture of wielding a knife in silence, a shout suddenly sounded from behind, which almost made his old waist flash away. The world's #1 Black Light Wheel Ultimate 9-fold Burst Slash. Dao would cry if there was no matching name for the razor-sharp slash. So Mr. 3 was very considerate to dub for Hawkeye, shouted out the name of this move, and made an "okay" gesture to Hawkeye who turned around and twitched crazily, meaning, "It's just a name, I know you're excited and satisfied, but you don't have to thank me." Hawkeye. If it wasn't for fighting against the enemy now, I really want to cut this bastard in half. Until now, the always calm #1 swordsman in the world finally tasted the feelings of Hancock and Doflamingo who had been cheated before. And the 3 former victims couldn't help but burst out laughing when they saw Hawkeye's speechless face. At this moment, it seems that the world's #1 slash is not so important. Barrett on the opposite side was not as relaxed as they were, with his legs firmly planted in the ground and his mind highly concentrated. I saw that the soaring black gold slash had not yet approached, but its fierce and domineering shockwave blew past, immediately leaving dense and small cut marks on his tough steel body. This is God's avoidance. In a trance, Barrett actually saw the moves of his lifelong enemy, the One Piece King Roger, under Hawkeye's slash. This not only didn't make him feel intimidated, but instead aroused his strong competitive spirit, and he couldn't help roaring up to the sky. The pitch-black right fist covered with golden particles was clenched tightly, and when the slash reached the front door, it was swung violently. Boom. The black-gold slash and the black-gold heavy fist collided together, the violent impact raged, and the land and forest ruins with a radius of several hundred meters were wiped out. Thick smoke was billowing, and in the bowl-shaped pit full of deep cracks, Barrett's right arm, which was slashed with eagle eyes, was hanging down by his side. The skin on it cracked inch by inch, and blood continued to overflow and drip to the ground. Although for Barrett, whose body was as strong as a monster, this degree of injury was not fatal, but it was enough to see the gap between the two sides. Without using the fruit ability, Barrett, who was broken at the meeting, is no match for the eagle-eyed Mihawk who is going all out. Hawkeye, who successfully repelled the powerful enemy, withdrew his domineering arrogance, put Hey Dowya on his back again, and came to Mr. 3 without looking back. Mr. 3, you called the name of the move just now? Hawkeye's expression was rather indifferent. Yes, it's under. Mr. 3 nodded his head heavily, and continued to say, how about it, the secret technique, the world's #1, the ultimate 9-fold burst slash of the jet black light wheel, sounds super handsome, doesn't it? In fact, it would be better to add 1,000 worlds in front, but I'm afraid that it will be too long, and it will affect your speed of drawing your sword. He actually gave reference opinions in a serious manner. That's it, you didn't call out the name of the move just now, did I hear it wrong? Hawkeye rested his chin with one hand, directly ignoring Mr. 3's talking to himself. After getting along for a while, he already has a general understanding of Mr. 3's detached character. Whether he admits the name of the move he gave himself or denies it, he must be the one who suffers and loses face in the end. Therefore, the best way to deal with it is to pretend that you didn't hear anything. Mr. 3 opened his mouth, but finally stopped teasing Hawkeye. To the point, it is the key to his ability to blend in with ease in this group of insidious and vicious 7 martial arts. Moreover, Barrett, who was injured in the huge pit, was approaching with a stronger momentum at this time, and wherever he walked, deep footprints were left on the ground. Looking at the domineering and menacing Barrett, the relaxed and comfortable expression on Mr. 3's face slowly retracted, and he took a step forward to meet those fierce eyes like a ghost. Sizzle sizzle. The condensed and steady overlord-like arrogance burst out from the body, turning into a pale aura of coercion, shaking the nerves of Barrett's whole body from the air. After the Pirate Empress and Hawkeye Mihawk, is it the Candle Demon Army Commander? At this time, no matter how arrogant Barrett was, he couldn't help but let out a shocking exclamation, although I've heard about it for a long time, the number of powerful people in your cross guild is really unexpected. For him who has been chasing the strongest all his life, to be called the word strong, must at least have the power to be infinitely close to the 4 emperors. Come on. I came here because I want to meet more powerful people. Let's fight to the fullest. Even though he sensed a strong sense of danger from Mr. 3's arrogance, Barrett was still full of fighting spirit and his momentum was rising steadily. Sorry, the stage of showing strength is over long after Hancock and Mihawk. With a wave of his hand, Mr. 3 removed his arrogance and said with a light smile, now is the negotiation stage. Barrett clenched his fists and snapped, are you kidding? I haven't hit you yet. Before he finished speaking, Mr. 3 interrupted him. Stop pretending, if you didn't guess wrong, that guy Tiki is hiding in a corner right now, ready to meet you? Hearing this, Barrett's momentum suddenly weakened, and a look of obvious surprise appeared on his muscular face. Damn it, has that guy Tiki been found? When exactly? The ally Blackbeard's operation this time was covered by Shiryu of the Rain, the invisible fruit ability, and it was difficult for ordinary scouting pirates to detect it. The powerful and domineering are all attracted here by me. How did this guy Mr. 3 find out? When, of course it is now. Mr. 3 chuckled lightly, and answered Barrett's doubts very generously. His ability to foresee the future has not been cultivated to the extreme, and it can have little effect on a powerhouse of Barrett's level. The reason why he still confidently asked about Blackbeard hiding in the dark is mainly because there are not many forces that are currently hostile to the Cross Union and are qualified to form a cooperative relationship with Barrett. Aside from the world government and navy, which Barrett himself hated so much, and the old-time pirates who had little contact with the Cross Union, the only remaining possibility is the Blackbeard pirates. Hearing this, Barrett, who was not good at calculating, was taken aback for a moment, but when he realized it, his face was terribly gloomy. Mr. 3, you fucking dare to dig a hole for me? Mr. 3 didn't take it seriously, even shrugged his shoulders indifferently, and said as a matter of course, you have already called me Candle Demon Army Master, I don't play tricks, am I sorry for this title? Seeing that the third brother actually played the legendary Barrett like this, the eyes of the surrounding pirate boys lit up, and their admiration was beyond words. Their bounties are basically above 100 million, so they are not stupid people, and such simple cliches can usually be thought of. But if the opponent is the legendary pirate Barrett with terrifying power, then he may not be so courageous and keep his face the whole time. This is the root of their sincere admiration. Before Barrett could explode, Mr. 3 raised his hand and pushed the goggles, his eyes flickering. Anyway, you're going to reveal the existence of Tiki in the end. After all, this is your escape route forcibly breaking into Bali. I guessed it in advance, but it doesn't have much impact. According to what he knew about Blackbeard, even with the help of Barrett, this cautious and cowardly guy would probably not dare to risk an all-out war with the Crusaders. The most powerful evidence is that after the two massive fights just now, even the sky was split. If the Blackbeard lurking in the dark really wanted to do it, he would have done it long ago, so there is no movement yet. The reason for Barrett to come to Kale Bali in such a big way is probably because he wants to show off his combat power, so as to achieve a deterrent effect. After all, Blackbeard's surprise attack on Mr. 3 failed 2 days ago, and he was afraid that he would provoke revenge from the Cross Union, which is really normal. There are many ways to show strength, but Douglas Barrett, a combat madman, chose the most arrogant one. From this level, it can be judged that Barrett did not join the Blackbeard pirates. The relationship between the two parties is likely to be the pirate alliance with equal status. To be able to make such a precise judgment in such a short period of time is indeed a smart person who can make both Tiki and the Admiral of the Navy suffer. Even though Barrett is still quite unhappy now, he still expresses his admiration for Mr. 3's sharp speculation ability. He has always hated these weak people, who are not strong enough and can only play tricks, but Mr. 3, who has the domineering aura that even makes him palpitate, is not among them. So what about Barrett? I believe you already know something about the power of the Cross Union. Do you want to leave Tiki and come to our side? Mr. 3 issued an invitation at the right time. Of course, he didn't mean it. For a monster with strong self-awareness like Barrett, if he wants to be obedient, he must have the combat power to completely suppress him like Roger. Obviously, their leader Buggy is currently, well, I don't have such qualifications. More importantly, Barrett is not like the old Samoria, who pays attention to basic pirate morals. He believes that the strong are respected, and he may turn around and kill his companions at any time. If Mr. 3 completes the main line of the system's 4 emperors' struggle for supremacy, and is strong enough to handle Barrett at will, it will be harmless to pull him to his side. But now, the harm of wooing Barrett is definitely greater than the benefit, and it will only increase unnecessary variables. Knowing this, Mr. 3 sent out an invitation. He naturally wanted to see if the alliance between Barrett and Teach was strong enough. This is very important, and it will directly affect many plans for the next crusade against Blackbeard. That guy Teachy has what I want, and I'm not going to join anyone. Basically the same as Mr. 3 expected, Barrett spread his hands and rejected the invitation very directly. Looking at Barrett's posture, Mr. 3 crossed his arms and weighed the pros and cons of taking him down here. That's a pity. After pondering for a few seconds, he sighed softly as he made up his mind, and looked at Barrett not only fiercely, but also with obvious fear. Go back, and tell Tiki for me by the way, the last sneak attack in this riot in Bali, we, the Cross Union, have recorded it, and we will repay it twice when we have the opportunity in the future. Hearing this, old Shahan Cook and the others were taken aback, showing puzzled expressions. Their meeting just now has decided to formally attack Blackbeard Titch. Isn't the correct approach now to defeat Barrett in the shortest possible time and weaken the Blackbeard pirates' combat power? As the cruel and vicious Shisabukai, they all have the character of revenge. Others have already called at the door of his house. Is he really going to let Barrett go like this? Through this period of getting along, they are very confident in Mr. 3's ability to judge the situation. This insidious and cunning man would actually show fear in front of the enemy. This kind of behavior is quite suspicious. Therefore, despite the doubts in their hearts, Crocodile Yingyan and other shrewd Shichibukai did not make a sound, kept silent, and cooperated with Mr. 3's performance. Barrett stood where he was, still dripping blood from his right arm. He didn't enjoy playing enough, and he really wanted to play against Mr. 3, a strong player who has become famous recently. But the other party's order to chase away the guest has already been issued. If he goes one step further, it will be a very obvious provocation and offense. He is a fighting maniac, not a fool with no brains, and he is not arrogant enough to single out the entire Four Emperors team. For the sake of his own life, Barrett raised his hand and shook the blood on his right arm, and said with serious eyes, "I will bring the words, and at the same time, I am looking forward to the day when I will fight with you to my heart's content." After that, he turned around and walked towards the beach with arrogant steps. Mr. 3 put his hands behind his back, looked at Barrett's back coldly, and didn't answer. The little pirates around were already burning with anger, clenched their fists, resisting the urge to step forward and leave Barrett behind. They are not the captains of the previous ship, and they need to obey the will of Chairman Buggy and the third brother of the military advisor, and cannot make trouble as they like. Just as Barrett used the combined fruit ability to assemble flying wings out of tree soil and was about to leave, Mr. 3 sighed softly, and his eyes covered by the goggles suddenly stared. Sure enough, I still can't stand the grievance of being slapped in the face. The dark black domineering field exploded, starting from his soles and spreading forward, covering the area where Barrett was in an instant. The steady stream of powerful aura crazily impacted on Barrett's mind with the force of a turbulent wave, greatly restricting his knowledge. This momentum. Barrett, who caught the strong and dangerous aura, was startled. Just as he was about to take an evasive move, Mr. 3, supported by wings of liberty at super speed, had already appeared in front of him, with dark gray candle liquid continuously gushing out from his right arm. "You are a guest, Barrett, let me give you a ride." Whoosh. Mr. 3 raised the flaming candle and swung his giant fist down. The huge explosion energy exploded on Barrett's muscular back like the coolest fireworks. "Damn Mr. 3, you fucking stole." Caught off guard, Barrett cursed. Before the words were finished, under the violent impact of the flame of the candle, the whole person turned into a shining star and flew to the distant coastline with a ding sound, and disappeared in Kale Bali Island. Comfortable. Mr. 3 patted the dust on his hands, very satisfied with it. At the same time, Buggy rushed over with many cadres and fellow pirates. Looking at the direction where Barrett disappeared, Buggy, as the president, asked the doubts in the hearts of everyone present. 3. The bastard Barrett is mixed up with Blackbeard. Why don't we take it down and lure out the Blackbeard pirates in the dark and catch them all? In their view, it is really not a wise move to let go of an enemy whose combat power is comparable to that of the Four Emperors. As if he knew that Buggy would raise such doubts, Mr. 3 raised his hand and pushed the goggles, and after organizing his words, he slowly expressed his thoughts to everyone. First of all, Barrett, who has the top 3 color domineering and fruit ability awakening, is not easy to deal with, especially the coverage of the combined fruit is quite exaggerated. It's not difficult to take him down, but the price is that Kale Bali and many of his subordinates will be affected, or even destroyed. Second, the enemy hides in the dark and waits for the opportunity to move. I don't know if there are other forces involved besides the Blackbeard pirates. The opponent came prepared, but they had no plan. The risk and uncontrollability of starting a decisive battle here in the base camp were too great. And the most important point, from Barrett's performance, it can be basically concluded that the cautious Blackbeard has no intention of fighting to the death. Their more thought is to use force to deter the cross-trade union, so that the two sides can maintain periodic checks and balances without interfering with each other. Based on this bit of information, he will do whatever he can, and take the initiative to show weakness and let Barrett go, which will have the effect of paralyzing Blackbeard, making him think that the deterrent operation is going smoothly. Under such circumstances, launching a full-scale attack on the Hive Island where the Blackbeard pirates are located will have a surprising effect. After listening to this analysis, even the shrewd and cunning crocodile, Doflamingo, couldn't help nodding his head slightly to express his agreement, but at the same time he couldn't help but lament Mr. 3's prudence in his heart. Wait. 3. According to your thinking, wouldn't it be better to hunt down Blackbeard as soon as possible? Buggy got the key to the operation. That's right, as the saying goes, speed is the most important thing. Since we want to catch Tiki by surprise, we have to pick a time that he absolutely does not expect to launch a general attack. A flash of determination flashed in Mr. 3's eyes, so, if you have no objections, I would like to schedule the surprise attack on Beehive Island in the early morning of tomorrow. Tomorrow? His words surprised all the cadres and younger brothers. Not to mention that Blackbeard couldn't have imagined it, even they couldn't believe it. After all the big pirates present were psychologically strong pirates. After gradually understanding Mr. 3's bold and crazy decision, the corners of Crocodile Ming's mouth and the others all raised their lips, bursting out with a strong fighting spirit. If there is no accident, This will be the first life and death battle in the true sense since the cross-union realized the closed loop of Shisebukai. At the same time, it will also be a battle for them to subvert the new world structure.